Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Was Taught by a Woman Who Understands His Pain. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no more time. Let's start the story.
Heen had been watching the Konoha ninja for a few days now, staying far enough away to avoid detection. She mainly used the tree climbing technique to get a good view. Her face was partially hidden by her arms as she sat on a broad branch of a tall tree, knees to her chest, arms crossed and resting on top of her knees. With a sigh, she turned to face the house of the bridge builder. She was the blonde boy's teammate and appeared to be dating him, but they had clearly wanted their relationship or privacy to remain secret because they only expressed their love for each other when they were alone on the rooftop at night. In reality, she already had all the information she needed about her specific target. "Auntie?" The woman sighed, sensing a presence. Without bothering to look at the other girl, Heen asked quietly, "What is it, Haku?" As she gazed off into the direction that Heen was facing, Haku said, "Zabuza. Sama wishes for you to report back," with a slight smile. Near the end, Heen's tone of voice grew dangerously low as she answered, "I'm not done here yet. Why do you even follow that man?" Haku began, "He saved me from my life on the streets." Heen gently retorted, "For your bloodline, you are not a weapon, Haku Chan, no matter how much he wishes for you to be." As she turned to face Heen, Haku calmly responded, "You were sold into Zabuza Sama's service. You cannot understand my gratitude toward him, unlike me." With her head buried deeper in her arms and her mouth spitting out Zabuza's name as if it were unpalatable, Heen spoke passionately, "Haku, our blood is the same. We both carry the icy shards of memories that sting at our very hearts every time we remember our past. Have you not paid back your debt to Zabuza Sama? How many lives must you end at the command of that man before you are free?" The line, "My dream, is to help Zabuza Sama achieve his goals. I will die to defend him and his dreams," was flawlessly stated by Haku. Heen's head moved to focus on where she had heard her niece speak earlier. "You're an idiot. I am sealed into service to that man. You are not, and yet you refuse to leave him to be with your own flesh and blood." Since Heen joined her and Zabuza 6 or 7 years ago, Haku had been conflicted. Zabuza had maintained that she would be worth the high price they had paid for her. In Water Country, Haku and Heen belonged to the same clan. But Heen had moved away when the nation started its bloodline purge. They still had family, Heen had informed her, but Haku had never left Zabuza to go look for them. "Why do you insist there are more of us? We are the last, auntie. Accept it," Haku replied quietly. With a disappointed expression on her face, Heen's head turned back toward her original area of interest. "I have children, Haku. There are more of us," Heen said before continuing. "And I will never see my children ever again. Never see them grow up, get married, become a grandmother, all because of that bastard you idolize, knowing full well that he will kill you when you outlive your purpose to him." Heen yelled at the child. It hurt that her voice was sharper and colder than Haku had ever experienced. "I'm sorry, auntie, but if that is Zabuza Sama's will, then so be it," Haku said firmly, straightening her posture and giving her lone relative a distressed expression. Heen concluded abruptly, dismissing her niece, "Stupid girl. You're no tool to be used and abused and finally tossed away with the trash once you're broken. Leave me be, I will report when I'm done." Heen was left with her thoughts after Haku vanished through Shunshin. The wind increased and blew her hair around her face for a few moments. "I hope you enjoy yourselves tonight, young ones, because tomorrow I will have to take everything you hold dear and destroy it," Heen said, standing slowly before leaving. "I'm sorry for what I must do tomorrow, to end such a young life, one in love as well." Tazuna's residence, late at night. All conversation at the dinner table came to a halt when Kakashi said, "Zabuza will be back at full strength tomorrow, and he's likely to attack the bridge with the fake hunter Nin." His lone eye darted between them all gravely. Shino nodded and said, "We'll have to be vigilant tomorrow." Naruto said, "Tomorrow, I'll accompany you." "No, Naruto, I need you to stay here with Sakura and Shino to protect Tazuna's family. I'll take Sasuke, Kiba and I'll need Hinata's eyes on the bridge tomorrow," Kakashi said. Naruto sighed. He didn't like the idea, especially since Hinata was close to Sasuke, but he was a shinobi, and shinobi obey orders from their commanders. Since Kakashi was in charge at the time, he didn't have to like it. Sakura glanced at Naruto to see what he was thinking about the plan at the moment, and it didn't seem good. She turned to see Sasuke grinning at Naruto before his gaze landed on Hinata and wandered to inappropriate places. At the final Uchiha, Sakura narrowed her eyes a little before suppressing her feelings as she had been taught to do. Naruto was always aware of the way Sasuke's eyes appeared to undress his girlfriend. he discovered that it required all of his willpower to kill him and fight the urge to defend her, which was a result of having a demon imprisoned inside of him. The offensive manner in which the Uchiha was examining his girlfriend as though she were a trophy in a contest made it even more difficult for him to control his emotions. If Hinata is with me, she is less likely to be outrightly targeted by Zabuza himself. It's for her own protection, said Kakashi. Naruto had to force himself not to snort at what the man was saying. As Kakashi went over his plans with Kiba, Sasuke, and Hinata in case they were attacked tomorrow, he crossed his arms and leaned against the table. Though he wasn't particularly interested, Naruto listened. He felt something, cold as he gazed blankly at the table. He got up and glanced at Kakashi before turning to face the others. Before anyone could protest, he said, "I'm going for a walk, I won't be long," and walked away. He jumped into the neighboring forest and spent a few minutes moving through the trees before coming to a stop in a tiny clearing. With one hand gripping the hilt of one of his wakizashi, he stood motionless in the middle, his eyes closed. "Get out here already," Naruto yelled. When the phony hunter Nin materialized a few yards ahead of him, he was not let down. It was Haku who said, "Greeting Leaf Ninja." The words, "Drop the pleasantries, you called me out here for a reason, now spit it out," were dispassionate and icy from Naruto. The girl said bluntly, "I've come to ask you to abandon your mission, Zabuza. Sama will kill all who oppose him." Naruto raised an eyebrow and inquired, "And does this message come from Zabuza himself, or on his behalf unknowingly?" As icy and unforgiving as the blonde in front of her, Haku said, "On his behalf, unknowingly, I do not wish to have to kill you all. It would make both our lives easier if only the bridge builder were to die, yes? One sacrifice for the good of many." "For the good of many?" Naruto laughed. "That man is this country's last lifeline. The country is depending on him to finish that bridge and break Gato's hold on Wave. And you want to deny an entire nation the right to freedom?" Naruto's expression conveyed disbelief. Glancing down to the right, Haku winced a little behind her mask. "After our transaction is finished, Zabuza Sama intends to kill Gato," Haku said firmly. "And then what? You leave Wave in an even bigger mess, full of bandits without someone to pay their meals. Wave country would be consumed by war within days. I cannot, no I will not allow that to happen," Naruto said defiantly to the phony hunt. "I will fulfill my master's wishes, even if I have to bring an entire nation of innocents to its knees in order to accomplish it," Haku responded passionately, letting out a sigh and lowering her head slightly. As he attempted to comprehend her twisted master's dreams, Naruto asked softly, his face contorted in bewilderment, "Why? Why serve such a despicable man?" "Because he is precious to me," said Haku in a straightforward and low voice. Naruto's expression softened when he realized her status and the reasons behind her actions. Although Enko wasn't the most well-liked or rational person in his village, he still valued her and would do nearly anything for her. Naruto shook his head slightly and raised his head to stare directly into the eye slits of Haku's mask. "Your loyalty is admirable, but it is misplaced in a man who thinks only for himself and of his own goals," Naruto said. Haku declared resolutely, "Tomorrow we will fight for our dreams and for our loved ones, and one of us will have our dreams die with them." Naruto said softly and with a sorrowful smile, "Had I met you anyplace else, we could have been friends," before they both vanished as a soft wind blew across the clearing. With Sakura and Hinata in the men room of their tent, Hinata and Sakura waited for Naruto to return from his walk outside Tazuna's house. When they returned to the village, they had been discussing their hopes for their dates. "I like ramen and all, and I know Naruto-kun worships the stuff, but I hope he doesn't take me to Ichiraku for our fist date," Hinata said with a smile. "Naruto can be clueless at times, but I don't think he's that stupid. I bet he's gonna take you on one hell of a date. The only problem you have is what you're gonna wear," Sakura said with a grin on her face. Hinata began to panic, saying, "Oh, I hadn't even considered that, what am I going to do?" Sakura tried to calm her best friend down, saying, "Hinata, chill the fuck out. I got this," but eventually succeeded. Hinata said clumsily, "I'm chilled," despite the terrified expression on her face suggesting otherwise. Sakura said somberly as she took a map out of her flak vest and unfolded it out onto the table to reveal a map of the Konoha Market District. "Hinata, this situation calls for a single and basic solution. We're going shopping when we get back to Konoha and we will get you the hottest damn dress the village has, or die trying. The fashion world is more vicious than the shinobi world sometimes." "Is this what I think it is?" Hinata asked, his eyes widening as he glanced over it and then up at Sakura, who was grinning evilly. Sakura muttered, "Yes, the legendary map of the Onio maniac. I thought it was a myth. Hinata blurted back, fascinated by the map's tidy notations and color-coded stores. No, it is very real, and to be kept secret at all costs, Sakura said softly, finishing the sentence with a menacing glare at her best friend. With her hand over her heart, Hinata declared, "You have my word that I won't relate to anyone what I have seen here." Sakura began, pointing to various places on the map. "Good, now, first thing is the dress, then shoes, then make-up." When asked if he was okay, Naruto smiled and told the girl that he had been feeling a little homesick. This particular conversation went on for another 30 minutes before he returned in a somewhat somber mood. Even though both girls knew his excuse was nonsense, they didn't really ask him why he was so depressed. After all, he was probably exhausted, and if it were that important, he would have told them. Before long, he was grinning as he prepared some instant ramen for the girls and himself. Naruto inquired inquisitively, "So what did the two of you do while I was away?" "Talk," was the simultaneous response from both girls. Slurp. Naruto stopped eating his noodles. He put the now half full or half empty cup of ramen on the table, cleared his throat, closed his eyes, and then carefully considered his next words. After a moment, he bit the noodles, letting them drop back into the broth and swallowing the remainder. Smoothly and evenly, he said, "I see, yes," Sakura said, in a tone as composed as Naruto's. Before Sakura broke the awkward silence, Naruto would not make direct contact with either girl. Sakura inquired, "Which do you prefer, red, purple, or black?" Naruto uttered the word, "red," hastily before returning to his ramen cup, ignoring the cunning grins on the faces of the two girls. When he had ramen distracting him, he was usually pretty unaware of everyone and everything. Fortunately, Sakura had put the map away, or Naruto would have discovered exactly what they were discussing. Besides, it was entertaining to tease him occasionally, and the chance to do so hardly ever came up. "Hey Sakura-chan, up for coming for a walk with me and Akamaru again?" Kiba smiled as he peered into the tent. Sakura grinned, got up, and walked away with Kiba, leaving Naruto and Hinata by themselves in the tent. "I'll be back in a minute," Naruto said with a smile as he closed the flap behind him and vanished into his side of the tent. With a small smile, Hinata moved to Sakura's side and took out a scroll before returning to the main room. "Hello Hyuga." She sat back down and asked plainly, "What do you want Uchiha?" without even turning to face him. Sitting opposite her, Sasuke gazed at her. She frowned as she raised her head from her scroll and said, "Yes?" in a harsh voice. Sasuke grinned and leaned in closer to Hinata, saying, Now, there's no need to be like that, you and I have unfinished business to discuss." Hinata's chest constricted as she glanced back up at him. Her instincts told her to flee and avoid him because she didn't like the way he was staring at her. Sasuke stopped as his smirk turned slightly into a menacing snarl. "You see, I find myself in a position where I need to rebuild an entire clan, which is going to take a long time. Now then, I already offered you the privilege and pleasure of receiving me," he said. With a single swipe, Sasuke pushed the table between them away and stood up. "But you denied me. The word, no, isn't something I like to hear, so when I want something, I take it by force." Sasuke chuckled, and Hinata retreated. With a sly smile and a small laugh, Sasuke said, "Be honored Hyuga, you're going to do me, your village, and the world a service by restoring my noble bloodline. Furthermore, if you prove to produce me a strong child, then I'll even consider you again to breed plenty more Uchiha." His voice was full of lust as he had Hinata backed up against the tent's wall, his arm level with her head to cut off her escape as she trembled in terror. Over the tent, a dark, cold pressure descended. Sasuke felt his knees tremble a little, but he gritted his teeth and managed to stay upright. He turned to see Naruto standing a few feet away, shirtless, with both of his wakizashi on his shoulders, crossing at the nape of his neck. Before she turned back to Hinata and took a step forward, Sasuke spit out an open snarl at the blonde. You're always getting in my way." He was blasted out of the tent and sent skidding along the ground. While the final Uchiha slowly tried to stand up, Naruto hurried over to Sasuke. Sasuke swiftly struck out with a kunai concealed in his sleeve as Naruto approached him, striking him across the chest. Before examining the fortunate hit Sasuke had managed, Naruto batted him away. "Great, I'm gonna need stitches for this one," he growled. Sasuke said angrily, "Good, I hope I can kill you with my next hit," to the blonde. Before vanishing from view and resurfacing behind Sasuke, Naruto said ominously, "You're going to need more than me." Sasuke turned, now gripping his bleeding forearm. With two more cuts on his back, Naruto struck too quickly for Sasuke to follow, causing the Uchiha to arch backward and scream in pain. Before repeatedly rushing past Sasuke until he was covered in minor cuts and a few deep ones, Naruto blasted past him once more, causing 3 cuts on his stomach and chest. The blonde eventually showed up in front of the Uchiha, poised to deliver the decisive blow, but a kunai blocked his swords, so it was not to be. Kakashi was staring at Naruto when he turned to the left. "That's enough. Naruto, go see to Hinata. I'll deal with this trash," Kakashi ordered. The interruption caused Naruto to growl a little before spitting in Sasuke's face and punching him, which sent the bleeding Uchiha thumping to the ground below. When Naruto rushed to the tent, he discovered Sakura clutching a trembling Hinata, with Kiba and Akamaru nearby, observing and ready to intervene if needed. While kneeling in front of her, Naruto questioned, "Hinata-chan, Hinata-chan, are you okay?" She gave him a shaky nod before throwing herself at him and clinging to him while sobbing, I'm sorry, froze you up." Holding her closer, Naruto reassured her and caressed her hair. "It's okay, Hinata, I'll never let him touch you, ever," he whispered. She appeared to settle down after a few minutes as Sakura and Kiba assisted each other in tidying up the tent's mess, including rearranging the table. To provide the two with some privacy, Sakura and Kiba stepped out of the tent. Hinata looked up from his slashed chest to his face and said, "Naruto-kun, why? You're hurt," through teary eyes. He grinned and kissed her forehead while wiping away her tears with his thumb. "I don't care, I want to make sure you're okay before I do anything else. Right now, let me worry about you," he said. Naruto gave her a gentle smile and said, "Watching you upset hurts more than the wound on my chest." He always cared more about her feelings and thoughts than his own, so she couldn't help but smile at him. After giving him a gentle lip kiss, she reluctantly withdrew and opened her eyes to meet his gaze. She mumbled, "Thank you and Naruto-kun." With a smile, Naruto gave her a kiss in return and said, "It's what I'm here for, Hinata. Time." In the interim, Kakashi said to Sasuke, who was now strapped to a tree with ninja wire, which didn't do much to heal his wounds, "I hope you realize how lucky you are that I stepped in." Naruto was fully prepared to take your head off. "Like I needed your help," he spat back, his mouth hanging open in a spitting motion. As he knelt down to a kunai buried in the ground with the wire holding Sasuke tied to it, Kakashi said, "Well, fortunately, the village deems you too valuable to kill. Unfortunately for you, we were not in the village, and even worse for you. I hate rapists." His one visible eye darkened. For a brief moment, Kakashi tightened the wire around Sasuke by drawing the kunai closer to him. As he gagged Sasuke to stop him from protesting, Kakashi remarked, "Is it painful?" "Good, because I haven't even started yet." As his hand erupted into a violent, crackling lightning chakra, Kakashi said ominously, "There are 5 elements, let's start with my own, lightning." With Hinata and Naruto. Naruto was seated on his camping bed, which was a rather basic device that resembled a fold-out chair. As neatly as she could, Hinata stitched his chest while sitting on a chair in front of him. When Naruto examined the girl's medical kit, he discovered that it was larger than the medium-sized basic first aid kit he had purchased for her from Muramasa. As Hinata gently tightened the wound by pulling the threading through his flesh, Naruto muttered, "I'm definitely going to have to get you some medical training. Stitches are uncomfortable." Despite his regeneration ability, the wound was deep and would have eventually required medical attention. Hinata whispered, "I'm almost done, Naruto-kun," as she tied the final stitch and trimmed the extra thread. She asked him, Does it still hurt?" as she took out one of her own ointments and put away the threading and scissors. Naruto opened it and found a scent of wildflowers. She then gently rubbed it along the ugly cut on his chest, causing him to wince a little before it started to work, numbing the pain and calming him down. "Not anymore, Hinata-chan. Thank you," Naruto grinned while observing her removing a few bandages. With trepidation, she glanced up at him and then back at his chest. With trepidation, she stepped forward and slowly wrapped her arms around his waist before removing the bandages from his chest and back. When Naruto looked down at her, he saw that she was blushing wildly from being so close to him. Before he spoke softly to her, he blushed and smiled. He chuckled as Hinata was completing the bandage and tying it. "Hopefully, the next time you see me without a shirt, it's not when I need your medical attention." Hopefully, Hinata grinned, albeit with a flush. Not expecting a response to that specific remark, Naruto flushed and shifted uneasily as Hinata sat back in silence on the chair in front of his bed. He got up slowly. Under his breath, Naruto uttered, "It's getting late." Hinata lowered her shoulders a little and muttered, Don't want to be alone. I didn't say you had to leave, Naruto said softly and with a genuine smile as he knelt down in front of her and lifted her chin to meet her eyes. Before giving him a kiss and embracing him, Hinata gave herself permission to smile a little. Thank you. With Kiba and Sakura. Sakura, seated at the dining table with Tazuna, Tsunami, Kiba, and Shino, remarked, when we get back to Konoha, the shit will hit the fan. Kiba stroked Akamaru behind the ears and remarked, I was certain Naruto was going to kill him. He was, Sakura said plainly, causing Kiba to look shocked. Since it reacted to intensely negative emotions, she had never seen her blonde teammate so furious, and not display its influence. Naruto must have found that difficult in and of itself. The others stared at Shino as he said, I do not blame Naruto-san. Akamaru growled in agreement as Kiba said, last Uchiha or not, it doesn't give him a right to do what he tried to do with Hinata. He will get away with it though. The civilian council outnumber the shinobi council 2-1. They will block any form of severe punishment they try to deal to the bastard. Even my own mother will take his side. Saddened Sakura. Shino said softly, with a single Kikai bug on his fingertip, Haruno-san, even though the council may not be able to punish him, I'm sure he will receive adequate treatment from Kakashi. Sensei. Shino appeared to be grinning a little. Sakura stood up and said, guys, I think we should go to bed, it's late, and we're all up early tomorrow. If you ask me, it seems like a good plan, Tazuna muttered. After saying goodnight to the others, Sakura left the house and went into the tent. She was a little concerned to see that Hinata was not there on their side of the tent because she assumed she would be sound asleep by now. After surveying the tent, she peered over Naruto's shoulder to check if he was aware of Hinata's location. She was met with the image of Naruto and Hinata dozing off in each other's arms. She assumed Hinata hadn't wanted to be alone tonight because she could see that she had been crying. After experiencing what Hinata did, which was every woman's worst nightmare, she wouldn't want to be alone either, if she was being honest with herself. Sakura gave herself a small smile and let the two sleep alone. In addition to Hinata killing her the following morning, she would not bother them tonight. With a faint weight on his chest, Naruto shifted in an attempt to preserve his slim chance of falling back asleep before opening his eyes and glancing down to see Hinata's black hair. He shook her awake with a slight smile. It's time to wake up, Hinata-chan, Naruto whispered in her ear. Lazily, Hinata opened her eyes and looked up at him. Given that she had woken up while lying on top of her boyfriend, she flushed. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes and sat up, her legs resting at Naruto's hips. It was obvious that she was unaware of the position she was in or the intense flush on Naruto's face. Doing his best to suppress the new emotions and feelings and drive out the images that were racing through his mind, Naruto turned his head away from Hinata. Though it was probably for the best, Hinata eventually got off of him, still not fully understanding what had happened. Naruto got up and stopped her as she was slowly putting on her armor and weapons. He put his arms around her waist, and she put her vest back on the chair and put her arms over his, grinning a little. He whispered, good morning, Hinata. Kissing her cheek before releasing her to put on his own gear and letting Hinata finish putting on hers. Sakura was sitting at the table, staring blankly at them both as they entered the main room simultaneously. Both teenagers sat down at the table opposite Sakura, unwilling to talk, frozen at the potential implications their sleeping arrangements might have had on their teammate. Sakura asked gravely, well, what do you have to say for yourselves? Naruto defended himself right away, saying, don't worry, we were just sleeping, nothing else happened. Sakura grinned and said, good, at least keep it that way when I'm around. She then led the other two inside the main house, where Tsunami welcomed them and they sat down to breakfast. Though he hadn't even acknowledged her or her team when they had entered, Hinata tensed up when she noticed Sasuke sitting next to Kakashi. He simply kept his head down and his black, melancholy eyes on his plate. Hinata then saw his black eye, which was painfully swollen, his busted lip, and his arms, which were covered in small burns and dark purple lines. His clothes and hair were also filthy, and he appeared worn out. Except for Sasuke, everyone was grinning. Kiba called out, morning guys, as the 7th team sat as far away from Sasuke as they could. Morning Kiba-kun. Sakura sat across from him and smiled as she said hello. Before he sat down, Naruto glanced between Kakashi and Sasuke. Regarding the incident last night, Sasuke will be brought up in front of the Hokage on a sexual assault charge and assault of a fellow shinobi. Unfortunately, the team plans I had yesterday are still going ahead for today. I need to keep an eye on Sasuke and I need Hinata's eyes, Kakashi stated simply. Although Naruto detested the idea even more now than when he first heard it, he had no say in whether Hinata was allowed to leave or not. However, he decided to express his feelings about it clearly. "If Hinata tells me that Naruto said, pointing to Sasuke with a disgusted expression, before continuing, even looked at her funny, "I will take trophies next time," before turning to face the Uchiha, who managed a feeble glare in return. Kakashi felt a chill go up her spine as Naruto spat darkly, "Next time, I'll tear your eyes from your fucking pretty little head." When he said that, he saw Anko in himself, and that woman had performed worse in the past. Kakashi assured Naruto, "Don't worry, I'll watch them both." "You'd better for his sake," Naruto said icily. Naruto's speech toward Kakashi and Sasuke was never Kakashi's fault. Sasuke was furious with the boy and embarrassed to be his teacher after the way he had attempted to push himself on the blonde's teammate. Unfortunately for Kakashi, Obito's eye made him the most seasoned Sharingan user in the Leaf Village, despite his repeated attempts to refuse to teach him. As Tazuna seemed to be weighing to go to the bridge, Kakashi sighed a little and gave Sasuke a glare before getting up and saying, "Right. Hinata, Kiba, and Sasuke, let's get going." Reluctantly, Hinata stood up, and when Kakashi walked out the door, Kiba and Sasuke followed. After they were gone, Naruto sighed and turned to face Sakura and Shino. "I feel bad about everything," he said, shaking his head and stroking his hair. At the bridge was shrouded in a dense fog when the group arrived, but more concerning was the total silence emanating from the normally bustling construction site. Zabuza stood with his head lowered as the mist slightly lifted, revealing the bodies of the construction workers scattered across the now dark red, soaked concrete. When Tazuna saw that these men had been more than just laborers, he instantly broke down in tears. They were all dead now because of the man in front of them, even though they had been his friends and had their own families. With a twisted smile, Zabuza looked up at Kakashi's group and said, "Ah, it feels good to warm up before a good fight." Kakashi glared at the nuke.nin and said, "Zabuza, these men were unarmed, why kill them?" Zabuza grinned and hefted his blade up to gesture at the team before focusing on Hinata. "I got bored while waiting for you to arrive with your team," he said. As two figures materialized, one on each side of them, Zabuza scowled and said, "You, girl, I have a special surprise in store for you." Zabuza found Haku by turning to the left. Zabuza said, "You look after the two boys, Kakashi is mine," as Haku moved forward and took multiple senbon needles out of her utility pouch. With her shoulders slumped, Zabuza's head abruptly turned to face Hine. "And you Hine, kill the girl." Zabuza spat at the woman. When she refused to move or respond to his order, Zabuza gave her a glare. He raised a single seal of his hand. Hine held her stomach in pain as she jolted. Her skin felt like it was being burned, and her ears rang with excruciating pain as the pain tore through her, causing her to drop to one knee. With one hand clutching her head in pain and the other clutching her stomach, she let out a loud scream. Zabuza growled, "I told you to do something." Taking deep, ragged breaths, Hine slowly stood back up and moved forward toward Hinata. When she stopped, she turned her head to face the Hyuga girl in front of her while continuing to take deep, ragged breaths. Before she charged at Hinata full speed, Hine sadly said, "I'm sorry, child, but I have to kill you." Hinata was only momentarily frozen before evading Hine's blow and landing behind the woman. With a single seal, Hinata assumed her Byakugan taijutsu stance. "So, you really are a Hyuga," Hine said with a sorrowful smile as she turned slowly and rubbed her head in agony from the seal's effects. As she charged, Hinata declared, "It doesn't really matter what clan I'm from." Before calling the name of her method, Hine hurriedly went through a series of hand seals. Hine loudly yelled, "Hyouten! Kori no Yeba!" and slammed her palms against the floor in front of her. Hine's right hand coiled around the jagged ice shards that shot up from the ground in front of her. She pulled her arm free, creating a blade of finely serrated ice that resembled a katana. As Hine charged directly toward Hinata, slicing and slashing at her, the blade whistling as it arced through the air at high speed, Hinata let her eyes widen at the weapon. Hine was knocked through the air and gently landed on her feet after Hinata's open palm caught her on the chin. The reddish tint of Hinata's frozen blood glistened on the very edge of Hine's blade as she whipped it back. Hinata covered the shallow cut with her hand, reaching up to her upper arm. In the meantime, Sasuke and Kiba had been making a valiant effort to match Haku's speed, let alone strike the phony hunter Nin. Haku easily avoided a Sasuke punch after sidestepping a ferocious head-on attack. Haku said in a dejected tone, "Not even close, if this is really the best you can do, you're going to die," before kicking Kiba in the head, sending the boy crashing into the concrete with a crack as he landed on his shoulder. Kiba screamed in agony as Sasuke ignored him and attacked Haku with a kunai. However, Haku blocked with a single senbon with minimal effort and then retreated from Kiba and Sasuke. Hinata. They both gasped for air. Hien had made multiple small cuts along Hinata's arms, while Hinata had only managed one blow. As Hien began to speak, they both focused on each other. Hien sobbed, feeling terrible that she would have to kill this girl. I really don't want to fight with you, but I have this seal you see, so I have no choice, she said. Though she didn't hold it against seals for attempting to kill her, Hinata genuinely felt sorry for the woman because she had witnessed the anguish and pain she caused. However, this didn't mean that she would make things easy for her because she had her own goals and aspirations to pursue. Holding Hien's forehead as her tears appeared to trickle down her cheeks and through the fabric of her headband, Hinata said earnestly, I'm sorry, but I can't simply roll over and die for you. Hien was in agony, so Hinata took advantage of the situation and rushed to her defense. After striking the woman's arms to stop some of the tenketsu, Hinata thrust the woman's chest with both palms, sending her flying back through the air and skidding a few meters along the ground. I missed. Hinata reprimanded herself as she watched the woman slowly stand up again, the ice blade turning to water as she hacked up blood. The woman appeared to be facing Hinata as she gasped for air. As she sealed her hand, Hien uttered, You missed my heart, you should have killed me, I won't hold back on you anymore. Hien raised 2 fingers to her upper arm and lightly jabbed it in various places, saying, You cut off the majority of my chakra flow to my arms, it is unfortunate. When Hinata saw the woman reopen her tenketsu, her eyes widened. Only a strong, blooded Hyuga with a highly developed Byakugan could do this. You're? Yes, a Hyuga, or, I am dead to that clan, Hien said, glaring at Hinata as she ripped off her headband to show off the Byakugan's characteristic eyes and veins. Hinata looked at the woman in front of her and said, I don't know you. Good, all the easier for you to kill me, Hien exclaimed as she rushed forward, sealing with a single hand before launching a barrage of lightning. Fast blows at Hinata. Until she noticed that she was slowing down and taking more and more blows, Hinata was able to avoid the majority of the blows, but the ones that did land were surprisingly light and painless. She quickly realized that Hien was using the ice element in conjunction with a light fist, which caused the muscles or tendons she struck to constrict and stiffen in a way that was nearly freezing. Hinata tried to move the woman's now stiff arms after jumping away from her and landing a few meters away. As Hinata rubbed her arms to improve blood flow and try to shake off the effects, if only slightly, she realized that her hands were rapidly becoming numb. Crap, she thought to herself, she's an advanced gentle fist user, and that ice element give her a clear advantage over me, and she's still holding back. You don't wear your headband on your forehead to hide your shame like the rest of the cadet branch, Hien said. With a small smirk, Hinata decided to use the situation to stall the woman and attempt to restore some of her lost hand sensation. I'm not of the cadet branch, and neither are you. I can't see the caged bird seal on your forehead. As she examined Hinata from head to toe, Hien said, Then, you are of the main house, and therefore, you must be the heiress. In an attempt to learn more about the woman's past, Hinata questioned, Perhaps, but why would a Hyuga be running around with a missing nin? And an unsealed Hyuga at that? I was once a headhouse Hyuga, I was betrayed. An elder kidnapped me a few hours after I had given birth with the help of 2 Anbu. He branded me with a bastardized version of the caged bird seal and had me smuggled out of the village into a slave trader in water country where I was sold into servitude to Zabuza. Hien said with a voice as frigid as the ice she could wield with ease. She asked again, You have children with the clan? Who? After Hinata had listened carefully and looked at the woman in front of her. While she hurried Hinata, Hien yelled, I have said far too much already, use the seal to kill me or you're going to die. In order to slow Hien down, Hinata leapt back even farther and unleashed a shuriken or hail. She then dashed through hand seals as fast as she could, but it was in vain because Hien was on her in less than a second, forcing Hinata to drop her jutsu and duck out of the way. In order to divert Hien's attention while she extracted some kunai and wire, Hinata swiftly created 2 Mizu Bunshin. After throwing the kunai, Hinata jerked on the wire and firmly wrapped it around Hien. Before the wire surrounding Hien strained and broke, tumbling to the ground like broken glass, Hinata gave herself permission to smile a little. Hien sprinted back toward Hinata and yelled, You're going to have to use the seal to kill me. As Hinata observed her 2 clones being frozen by Hien's touch, she declared, I never have and will never use the caged bird seal for my own selfish needs. Hinata thought to herself, I don't think I can't win this, and I'm running low on chakra, as the woman attacked her once more. All of my jutsu won't work on her, she just freezes the water or makes my tools brittle enough to snap with ease. Hinata ducked under Heen's fingers narrowly before Heen's open palm to her chest blasted her back to the ground a few feet away, her muscles tensing with each hit the woman delivered. The blade of serrated ice formed in her hand again as Heen approached, and Hinata slowly managed to prop herself up on her elbows and scoot back a bit. As Heen lifted her blade high and struggled to bring it down on the girl, she said, "I'm sorry." Hinata yelled in agony as multiple senbon needles pierced her back and throat before she went limp. Before returning to battle with Sasuke and Kiba, Heen turned to face the direction of the senbon and saw Haku with his arm extended, the marking on his mask giving him a ruthless crimson smirk from his vantage point. Heen glanced back at Hinata's motionless body and collapsed to her knees. The pain was so great and overwhelming that the caged bird seal on her back tickled in comparison. She hurriedly checked for the girl's pulse but couldn't find it, so she just knelt beside the girl's body while she allowed her tears to fall down her cheeks, turning to ice before dispersing like dust in the wind. Hinata had come here prepared to die today, to be forgotten, to vanish from the world and memory. Heen carefully and slowly lifted her body into her arms, finding her to be already growing cold as she held her tightly and sobbed quietly. Before opening her eyes to look at the little girl's face, she leaned down and gave her a gentle forehead kiss, whispering to herself, "I never wanted to see you like this." She let her tears fall freely, a small, melancholy smile tugging at her lips as she brushed some of the girl's hair away from her face. "My little girl's dead, because of me." Heen held Hinata's body as close as she could while sobbing to herself in a low voice as her body trembled with each breath. Somewhere earlier, as Gado's two samurai, aspiring men walked up the path toward Tezuna's house, Naruto allowed himself an evil smirk as he just relaxed and watched from his cozy spot on the roof. It was amusing that these men were so self-assured that they hadn't even checked the house to see if there were guards outside. Naruto chuckled to himself and said, "These poor bastards don't even realize they were dead the minute they started walking up the path." The two samurai had halted down below when Inari had emerged from the house and frozen upon seeing them. The young boy tensed in terror as the two murderous thugs approached him slowly, their blades resting on their shoulders, both of them grinning as they drew their katanas with not the least bit of grace. "Hey, kid. Is your mother at home?" While the other one simply smiled with sadistic delight, the smaller of the two with the beanie hat asked. When Inari's image faltered and an older girl wearing black and pink hair appeared, he relaxed fully and grinned. The taller one began, "What the?" And then, with a horrified expression on his face, he grabbed at his throat in an attempt to stop the blood from gushing out. Upon releasing Sakura's genjutsu, his partner unexpectedly brought his hands together and discovered that he was still gargling his own blood. A chilly voice spoke up behind the thug, "Surprising, a hired thug who knows about chakra is very surprising, let alone using actual jutsu." A boy wearing sunglasses and a gray high-collar coat was staring at him as he swiftly turned. "I'm afraid you're out of your league," Shino said as his hive exploded out of his sleeve and completely engulfed the man as the thug raised his sword and Shino raised his arm. There were a few quiet moments before Sakura approached Shino. "Got to be honest, your bugs still creep me out a little, but damn, the fear in his eyes as they swarmed him was just," Sakura said. Silently, Naruto landed beside the other two and finished, "Epic," for her. Sakura merely nodded and Shino glanced between his allies before speaking, flashing a small smile that he quickly covered up. "I think it's reasonable to state that Midarashi-san's lessons and mannerisms have kind of trickled down to you too," Shino observed, glancing back at the lifeless body his Kikai had begun to consume. As he bent down to observe the insects in a hysterical rage over their meal, Naruto remarked, "And I had no idea that Kikai were carnivorous." Sakura and Naruto exchanged surprised looks as Shino said, almost enthusiastically, "Omnivores, actually, they will eat anything from human flesh to rotting wood and vegetation, but they prefer chakra, being able to harness the energy themselves as a source of nutrition, something that my clan have been studying for generations." Following a somewhat uncomfortable and quiet exchange of looks, Naruto merely shrugged before speaking to the other two. Naruto grinned ferociously as his hands immediately clutched his wakizashi hilts with unadulterated excitement and anticipation. "You two stay here, I'm going to back up the others at the bridge. No doubt Zabuza and his hunter Nin are making things difficult, besides, I'm itching for a scrap with one of the legendary swordsmen of the mist. Naruto, you've received instruction from the top Kenjutsu expert in Konoha." Sakura gave him a serious warning as he started to leave, saying, "But remember, Zabuza is an A. rank missing nin, he is famous for his use of his sword, Be careful, because one single slip up and he will kill you." When she was done speaking, Naruto paused, turned to face her with a calm, serene expression, and nodded before turning away from Shino and Sakura and vanishing from view. Sakura recognized the calm, serene expression on Naruto's face that she had only ever seen once before. Oh, she recalled that day and would always remember it, the day she discovered the brutality of her chosen career path. Rewind. To deliver a scroll, Team Enko headed down the dirt path road toward the next town. Since it wasn't that far to walk there and back, the team chose to walk slowly, and it was only a D rank, nothing noteworthy. Naruto grinned and walked with his hands clasped behind his head, saying, "Sakura, you know you can eat anything you want and still maintain a good figure. Look at Enko-sensei. All she eats is shite and she doesn't get fat, much." Enko grinned and said, "Watch your mouth, you little blonde prick." When Naruto smiled back at her, the Junin gave him a slight glare, but she couldn't help but smile as well. "Banter, Enko. Sensei, all banter." "Oh, you grinned. I'm free." Naruto gave Enko a laugh. Enko simply shook her head as her genin team laughed. This time, she would let it happen because she had been literally training them to the ground. Despite this, she had become more attached to her two new students than she had anticipated, though not nearly as much as she had to Naruto. A shiver ran down her spine as she watched her team converse and laugh together. She also saw Naruto twitch just a little bit. Good, he knew. Though his entire attention was on something else, Naruto tensed up a little before he relaxed and carried on laughing and talking with Sakura and Hinata. Only a few seconds later, a group of 5 men blocked the Konoha group's path by running out in front of them. "You can all leave without getting hurt if you turn over whatever you're carrying. Hurry up," one of the bandits, obviously the leader, demanded. The bandit leader attempted to push Naruto back, but Naruto continued to move forward, saying, "Excuse me, gentlemen, but we have somewhere to be and I'd rather not hand over my possessions. Now, if you'll kindly step aside." When the man slid to the ground, everyone except Enko was shocked, but Naruto jumped back a little to avoid the rapidly spreading pool of blood that appeared to spread from the still body now on the ground. Naruto reacted quickly, and with a metallic click, he was still standing where he was. A blade was concealed by the small object. "Murder him," one of the other bandits yelled, and he immediately swung his club at Naruto. With lightning speed, Naruto drew his wakizashi and bounded past the man, causing him to collapse to his knees and then fall forward, his waistline dripping with dark blood. Sakura dodged another bandit's attack and retaliated with a kunai out of instinct. Hinata was attacked by someone who tried to swipe at her with what she assumed was a sharpened garden rake, but she easily ducked under him because he had no idea how to swing his gardening rake of doom from left to right. She even began to enjoy herself, tapping him occasionally to annoy him more. As her genin either played with their prey or simply killed it, more accurately, slaughtered it in the most gruesome and terrifying ways. Enko didn't even bother to move. Instead, she smirked, comparing this to how the giant tigers in the Forest of Death watched their young make their first kills. "Finny up, girls. Didn't your moms ever warn you not to play with your food? I'm talking about victims. Stupid tigers," Enko said, puzzling herself in the process. Sakura took Enko's words as an order, and as soon as she had the chance, she drove her kunai into the bandit's stomach and swiftly tore it out, bringing him to his knees. Sakura then grabbed a handful of his hair and yanked his head to the side before repeatedly piercing the man's neck with her blade, causing blood to splash across her face as she vented her frustration on the poor jerk in front of her. After she calmed down, she realized what she had done, and she looked down at her hands, which were covered in her opponent's blood. Before turning to throw up, she slowly moved away from the body. The girl was standing calmly in front of her opponent, who appeared to be out of breath, and unfortunately out of time as Hinata's Byakugan activated. Enko had watched, amused and impressed, before turning to watch Hinata's fight. She rushed forward and slammed her palm into his forehead, effectively turning off his brain, in a manner of speaking. Enko had to laugh when she saw this because it was the most hilarious way to end a fight she had seen in a long time. She had too quickly followed Sakura's example and thrown up her lunch on the bandit in front of her. After finishing the third and last bandit with a downward slash to the face that effortlessly sliced through muscle and bone, she turned to face Naruto, who had straightened up and turned to face his teammates, his face a blank, emotionless mask of composure. This was the face Sakura saw when she looked up, and the expression on his face was etched in her memory for the rest of her life. It was a face of complete neutrality, calm and uncaring without being icy or regretful. Flashback termination. Sakura shivered a little as she tried to get the memories of that day out of her head. She was relieved that she wouldn't have to see Naruto's impending savage outburst, but she was also a little disappointed that she would miss out on an epic battle at the bridge. Knowing that he had a lot of energy to expend and that Zabuza would be weak from his battle with Kakashi, Naruto raced through the trees at full speed. He grinned as he considered the opportunity to finally use his sword skills against a person who would genuinely attempt to murder him. He had suffered severe cuts and bruises during his training with Hayate, but he had never engaged in combat with a fighter of Zabuza's caliber. It was thrilling to think of finally dueling to the death against a man with at least 20 years of experience. Naruto whispered to himself, This is the moment that I have trained for," as a glimmer of excitement sent a shiver down his spine. On the bride. With a spray of yellowish sparks, Kakashi locked his kunai to Zabuza's head cleaver. Just as quickly as it arrived, there were flashes of yellow and the reverberating echo of metallics clashing. This continued for a few moments until both Kakashi and Zabuza appeared facing each other, a few meters apart, assessing each other. With his bandaged face twisted upward in a snarling smirk, Zabuza looked down his nose at Kakashi and pondered, "I wonder how your brats are holding up against my tools, if they are even still alive." Kakashi gave the man a small glare before giving Zabuza a more severe one. "Tools? That's all you see those two as? Then I feel sorry for you," he said. "I'm far from innocent. I once thought all shinobi were expendable, so long as the mission was complete, then it didn't matter who died or who got hurt." Kakashi slightly shook his head before looking at Zabuza. "But you're worse than me. You truly are a heartless bastard, to think so little of people who would die so you could achieve your goals, and what makes it so much worse is you're willing to crush an entire nation for your selfish needs." Zabuza gave Kakashi a small glare and explained, "Like I give two shits about this fucking cesspool of a country, and as soon as I kill the bridge builder, I'll simply move on to the next job." Kakashi simply squinted his Sharingan eye at the man in front of him before letting it stray to the left because he sensed someone standing behind him. As he stepped back, Kakashi remarked, "It's about time you arrived." "I took the scenic route," Naruto replied bluntly as he moved toward Kakashi through the fog and paused to stand next to him. Zabuza glanced at Naruto with little interest and said, "Yet another useless genin playing ninja. Is Konoha really so lax in its training, Kakashi?" Naruto said, sarcastically, "Momochi Zabuza, demon of the bloody mist. Yes, I know exactly who you are and all about your accomplishments." As he knelt down to Naruto's eye level, Zabuza hefted Kabikari Hucho onto his shoulder and raised one of his non-existent eyebrows at the blonde. "Then you are aware that I'll happily murder women and children and ill-murder you too, brat," Zabuza growled before giving the blonde boy a sadistic smirk. "I have a pair of blades and I don't play ninja. I've killed people to protect my village and people who are precious to me. I am a shinobi. What do you fight for?" Naruto said solemnly as Zabuza attempted to intimidate the blonde by flaring his chakra. "In case you failed to notice," he said, pausing to push the tsuba of one of his wakizashi up with his thumb, exposing just an inch of the blade with a soft click. "You may have a blade, but don't even think you're half my level. I can crush you under the flat of my blade with my strength alone. What chance does a runty little shit kicker like you stand against one of the most elite swordsmen in all of the elemental nations?" Zabuza yelled in response to his opponent's blade onto the bridge. Naruto grinned and pulled out his wakizashi, shielding his forearm with it in a reverse grip. "Then allow me to test myself against you, blade to blade," he said. With his blade tearing through the concrete, Zabuza bounded toward Naruto and yelled, "Don't fucking insult me." As Naruto accelerated at a speed that Kakashi never believed the blonde could achieve, Kakashi leapt away from the two. He was even more shocked when he saw how quickly Naruto and Zabuza clashed blades, and he was even more shocked when he realized that in addition to blocking Zabuza's blade, Naruto somehow equaled his strength. Naruto held the blade to his forearm and blocked the blade again as Zabuza swiped diagonally from below. Naruto said, "I've drawn my first blade on you, with it I protect those precious to me." He then leapt back and swiftly drew his other wakizashi, holding it normally in his right hand while the other was in reverse grip in his left. Zabuza tried to cleave Naruto at the waist, but Naruto vanished in an instant, blocking his blade. Before striking the man with his wakizashi, Naruto threw himself over Zabuza's blade using the momentum of the block. Naruto leapt back as Zabuza leaned back and pulled his blade with him. Before Naruto threw his wakizashi forward and splattered blood from the tip of his blade, the two blades' men exchanged a look. Blood was flowing from Zabuza's cheek to the corner of his mouth when he raised his hand to his face and pulled it back. He examined the blood on his hand before turning back to face the blonde. "I've drawn my second blade on you. With it I kill those who seek to destroy everything I love. You want to kill Tazuna and destroy Wave? I won't let you. Tazuna is a good man, Fighting to save his country, that is his dream, and he and his family are precious to me. I will fight and die to see that he has his dream come true. Wave country is a free country, Naruto said resolutely as he dropped into his kenjutsu stance, his left hand still holding the defensive blade close to his waist and the other blade held horizontally in front of him. He tensed his leg muscles and then relaxed them a little while keeping his knees bent. Both Kakashi and Tazuna, who was standing behind Kakashi, gazed at the blonde boy with wide eyes. He thought he might be losing his mind, but he was convinced that Naruto could defeat Zabuza. It was like hearing his sensei's resolute and affectionate voice again. He was a man you had to believe in despite all the odds against him. He's definitely your son, sensei, Kakashi said, allowing himself a short smile. Zabuza stood up straight and looked down at Naruto after glaring at the boy and preparing his sword. Bloodlust and the desire to kill, maim, and mutilate rolled off him in drunken waves. "Come at me," stated Zabuza. "Ladies first." Naruto grinned and tensed his leg muscles again. The blades were raised in midair as the two leapt at each other. Kiba and Sasuke. The phony hunter Nin just caught the shuriken on the end of their senbon after Sasuke threw multiple of them. The hunter Nin said in a tone devoid of emotion, "If you want to defeat me, you'll have to step up your game. At this level, this is child's play." Sasuke just hurled a couple more shuriken at the hunter Nin, who easily sidestepped them. However, the shuriken whipped straight for her as the final one that was headed for her head was about to pass. Haku dodged the shuriken by reacting fast and cocking her head back, but not before it tore deeply into her mask. Very innovative, using wire to redirect the shuriken flight path to try and saw through my head. Unfortunately your wire glinted, had it not I'm sure you'd have killed me. No more games, I'm going to kill you now, said Haku impassively as she sped through hand seals. The fake hunter Nin instantly stood up. Hyouten. Demonic ice mirrors, she yelled as the water vapor began to encase Sasuke and Kiba in thick sheets of ice. Haku approached the closest mirror and stepped into it, making her image appear in all of the mirrors surrounding Sasuke and Kiba. Sasuke sneered at the ice and rushed through the seals, exclaiming, "Kaden! Gokakyu no Jutsu!" He took a deep breath before hurling flames at the frozen mirrors. As his fire ate up the mirrors before him, he grinned a little. A voice from within the flames asked, "Was that meant to do something? Ice such as this cannot be destroyed by your infantile fire-breathing jutsu." The voice repeated as the flames swiftly extinguished without leaving even a scorch on the mirror, while Haku's masked face mocked him with that pattern of swirling crimson grins. Sasuke growled at her and said, "Infantile. I'll show you the power of the mighty Uchiha clan, instead." "If your clan was so strong, why is it extinct?" asked Haku. Sasuke yelled back at her, "It's not extinct," and threw a kunai at the mirror, only to have it bounce off without causing any harm. Haku answered, "Not yet," as her reflection raised both of her senbon-filled hands. Kakashi. With his Sharingan eye spinning wildly, Kakashi watched intently as the two warriors wielding blades moved in unison. One was calm and unstoppable, while the other was a violent tornado of hacking and slashing. As he watched, Kakashi was enthralled. He had witnessed his own father practice with his chakra saber when he was younger, and he had never witnessed such grace in swordplay before. As he attempted to stay up with the battle, Tazuna asked, "How can Naruto keep up with that brute?" As his eye darted around the bridge, ready to leap in at any moment, Kakashi said, "Because he has been taught by some of Konoha's top Junin, and from what I heard he was good, but I never thought he would be at this level. He's stronger than I was at that age. This is unreal." Zabuza's head cleaver was about to cleave Naruto's head clean off his shoulders, but he twisted his body to avoid it. He then leapt back a little and gave Zabuza an enthusiastic smile. "You were very good, but it's to be expected, especially when you've got 20 years experience on me. I didn't think I'd enjoy myself this much, so I thank you for that, but I think it's about time I go on the offensive," Naruto laughed. Zabuza scowled at the blonde while pointing his blade at the boy. Before he and Naruto rushed each other, Zabuza spit out, "And I have clearly underestimated you, but you're still wasting my time, you're still nowhere near my level. Prepare yourself, because I'm not playing anymore." However, Naruto launched a lightning-fast barrage of attacks, forcing Zabuza to hop back slightly in an attempt to take another swing. When Naruto noticed this, he stepped in to defend Zabuza, making it difficult for the legendary swordsman to even return the blonde's rapid barrage of blows. The only thing Zabuza could do was use his blade to block or at least deflect the attacks, but Naruto's strikes were getting faster by the second, and he was beginning to sustain more and more minor wounds. The blonde was repelled a few meters onto the wet concrete floor by Zabuza's forceful kick to Naruto's chest, but not before Naruto gave her a farewell present. To stop the bleeding, Zabuza gripped the deep cut on his upper arm. He straightened up after he realized it wasn't that deep, and when he turned to face Naruto, he saw that the blonde was back on his feet, albeit still injured, as he was clutching his ribs and had coughed up some blood. With a determined smile, Naruto yelled, even if I have to take you down, slice my slice, I won't lose to you." Before spitting a mouthful of blood onto the ground and getting back up, Zabuza launched himself at the blonde, bringing his blade down on Naruto's shoulder. "I'll admit, brat, you're good with those butter knives and you have earned my respect, but now that you've really fucking pissed me off, I am seriously going to rip you to shreds," he spat out. Even though Naruto was able to block the majority of the blade, his shoulder was still nicked. With lightning speed, Zabuza applied pressure to the back of his blade and raised the hilt, causing Naruto to collapse to his knees. Zabuza was even more enraged that this child had the audacity to treat him in this manner when Naruto spread his arms wide with a smug smile. "Come at me, bro." Kiba and Sasuke. After witnessing Sasuke and Haku's brief altercation, Kiba grinned a little when Sasuke was struck in the face and fell back to the concrete floor with a loud thud. Sasuke's eyes widened as he saw Haku hurl a handful of senbon at him, and he automatically replaced himself with Kiba, the closest object. Kiba let out a cry of agony as multiple senbon pierced his body. He turned to face Sasuke, who merely sighed in relief and gazed at the reflections without even acknowledging Kiba. Kiba struggled to his feet and yelled angrily at his alleged teammate, "What the fuck, you selfish bastard, you could have killed me." Sasuke spat out, "Shut up, Inuzuka. You're a disposable asset compared to me. My blood has more value." He then glared at Kiba, saying, "You should be thankful that you were useful to me for once." Before Haku's voice caught the Uchiha's attention, Kiba snarled at them. Haku spit out from behind her mask, "Using your own teammate to take the hit for you, that's low." Sasuke glared at Haku and declared, "I am Uchiha, a wielder of the powerful Sharingan. My blood is noble and prestigious, priceless." And yet the Hyuga girl could see through the fog and even damage Zabuza. "Sama, a man 10 times my strength, yet you've barely scratched my mask," Haku chuckled. "If your eyes are so damn special, then why is it you are in this position, barely able to dodge me? Face it, you were weak, hiding behind that name and the achievements of your predecessors, thinking that because of your name and bloodline you have a divine right to strength. I will tell you no, that the world doesn't work that way. In this world of shinobi, we have to kill to live and we live to kill, to cut out a rough and vile existence as murderers, thieves and rouges. None of us are divine. We are cursed," Haku yelled at Sasuke. Before saying, "If you really hate your life so much, come before me and I shall ease your suffering," Sasuke just looked at the girl wearing the mask. Before she threw senbon from behind Sasuke and struck him in the shoulders, Haku remarked, "Ha, if you want to kill me, then you'll have to work for it. I'm not going to roll over and die for you." To Zuna's home. After cleaning up the mess outside the house, Shino and Sakura started using trip explosives and signal flares to trap the area. While Sakura began using genjutsu between the trees, Shino used his bugs to scout a large area surrounding the house. Soon after, Sakura finished and went back to Shino, just as his bugs had returned to him. Sakura called out, "Are we all done?" "Yes, no humans for at least 300 meters. I've planted bugs throughout the forest. They will pass on information to me should anyone come this way. They will also be able to tell me from which direction and at what speed they are traveling," said Shino. "Brilliant, so that way we will know what we're up against and prepare for it before it arrives," said Sakura. "I'm glad I was put on Naruto's team," she thought. "If it's okay with you, may I ask how come?" Shino asked. "Because I'm not weak and helpless. He and Enko-sensei have made me strong and I've found the kind of friends I hadn't thought were possible. I'm not longer a drooling fan. Girlish daydreamer. I am proud to call myself a kunoichi," Sakura replied with a grin. "I agree, you are better for their training, though I am envious of your team's close friendship, whilst myself and Kiba have a close friendship and partnership. Sasuke refuses to acknowledge us unless he has to or unless it benefits him. I don't trust him, he is unstable." "You can say that again, he seems to have a massive log permanently wedged into his ass," Sakura murmured. Shino gave a tiny flinch, to which Sakura simply grinned. Sakura proposed, "You know, you and Kiba would be welcome to train with our team. Myself and Kiba may just take you up on that offer, Kakashi. Sensei is good but he lacks the motivation to teach us very much. He always has time for Sasuke, though I believe it to be forced," said Shino. "Is that so? Well then you had better come to our training sessions. They are hard and brutal, but they will pay off," Sakura replied with integrity. That, and I'm sure you would enjoy being near Kiba a bit more, said Shino. Maybe, Sakura maintained her composure. I know he has feelings for you. We are best friends, so it's only natural he tell me things that best friends tell each other, said Shino. Sakura couldn't help but smile and blush, so she raised an eyebrow slightly. Naruto. Naruto gasped as he turned to face Zabuza, who appeared to be gasping as well. Both grinning sadistically at each other, both covered in wounds and bruises. Naruto rolled his shoulder a little because the wound was beginning to limit his arm movement. Even if the fox were to heal it, it wouldn't do so immediately. First, Naruto would have to endure the pain of the wound. Given that the seal was more than a little restrictive, it was the demon's meager attempt at retaliation. Zabuza gave an evil laugh and said, I bet that stings a bit, brat? Naruto sarcastically responded, nothing I can't handle, thank you so much for your concern though, as though he were pleased Zabuza had inquired. Without showing any emotion, Zabuza said, I have to admit though, if I had 10 swordsmen like you, I would have taken Kiri in a day. You don't deserve to have such loyalty from your follower, the masked girl, said Naruto. Zabuza pointed to the diagonal scar on his chest and said, Haku is a tool, nothing more, nothing less. She is faithfully obedient, unlike that other bitch I control, the one who's fighting your teammate, the little bitch who give me this scar. I hope they kill each other, though I doubt Hien will lose. Zabuza chuckled as Naruto winced visibly. He had been too preoccupied with his own battle to inquire about Hinata. After letting his gaze drop to the ground, Naruto raised it again to meet Zabuza's triumphant smile. With both in reverse grip, Naruto flipped the wakizashi in his right hand and glared at Zabuza before rushing forward and jumping into the air. In less than a second, he was on Zabuza, slashing at the nuke.nin with lightning. Fast, viscous slashes. Naruto then sent a burst of chakra to his wrists, releasing his wrist blades and using them in tandem with his wakizashi to double his attacks. Before long, Naruto's unrelenting attacks were repeatedly stabbing and slashing Zabuza. The cleaver then flew past Zabuza, missing him by millimeters before slicing just above his elbows, cutting off the muscles in his upper arms and making them useless. Naruto then swiftly leg swept Zabuza's legs from under him, smashing the man to the ground. With one of his wrist blades pinning him to the concrete through his left shoulder and the tip of the other hovering millimeters from his face, Naruto materialized above Zabuza, who looked up in agony. Zabuza noticed that Naruto had a calm, serene expression on his face, as though he had just swatted a fly, when he looked past the tip of the blade. At that point, Zabuza realized he had lost the fight and would most likely die shortly. He was worn out, almost depleted of chakra, and his arms were useless. Zabuza spat at the blonde, saying, "Finish me." Naruto just gazed at the man, who appeared to be getting angrier by the moment. Naruto merely gazed at the man before putting his blade to his throat. "See, you may have skill, but you're still just playing shinobi. If you can't mercilessly kill, then you will never be shinobi," he said. Before removing his blade from his shoulder and stepping off of Zabuza, Naruto said calmly, "I don't believe that. The moment I start to mercilessly kill people who are defenseless is the day I lose my humanity and my self-respect. That would be the end of me. I beat you because you threatened someone special to me. When you fight to protect something or someone you care for, you give it your all, even at the cost of your life. Something that Masked Girl knows all too well. She isn't strong because she's been trained by you. She's strong because she loves you like a daughter would a father, regardless of your treatment toward her. She's strong because she has someone to protect, you," Naruto said while staring at the bleeding guy in front of him. The words, "I understand how she feels. To protect someone who doesn't appreciate it or even care for you, it hurts. But we protect the people we love, regardless of what they think of us, even if they abuse us, hate us, or hurt us," caused Naruto to pause, tears streaming down his face. Before glaring at Zabuza, Naruto said softly and with a melancholy smile, "The pain of being alone and unwanted hurts more than being hurt by the ones we love." Naruto said resolutely, "You're strong, but that strength is useless without someone to share that strength with, to protect them." Zabuza slowly managed to sit up straight while attempting to conceal his own tears. "Kid, you can stop now, I get it," was the voice that emerged from the concrete, cracked and broken. How could he have been so callous to the only person who had ever shown him kindness or affection? Instead, he made her kill in his name and break her tender heart. Kakashi approached the blonde from behind and lowered his forehead protector, saying, "Naruto." From the end of the bridge, a voice said, "Oh, how touching." The group searched for a short man with greasy gray hair, a business suit, sunglasses, and a cane. His right arm was heavily cast. There was a small army of Rouges and bandits behind him, all of them armed. Zabuza spat out. Getu, is the name. Well, Zabuza, we find ourselves in quite a situation here. You failed to kill the bridge builder, but it matters little now. That's what these fine gentlemen with me are for. To kill the bridge builder and you and that little whore who broke my arm, Getu said with a smirk. Zabuza gave the small businessman a fierce look. Oh come now Zabuza, don't look at me like that. Did you honestly, truly believe it'd pay you to kill somebody? You were merely an investment. You were to kill the bridge builder, and when you came for your pay I'd have my men slaughter you for the bounty on your head. You see, I have a code when it comes to business. Always walk away with more than what you came with. Getu chuckled. Zabuza got up slowly and moved past Kakashi and Naruto to confront Getu. Kakashi merely nodded when Zabuza said, Kakashi, my fight is not with you anymore. Zabuza then turned to face Naruto. Zabuza said softly as he gazed at Getu's smug smile, Kid, I want you to take care of Haku for me. She deserves a stable and good life, and I can't give her that. Tell her that our storm is over, she will understand. After giving it some thought, he turned to face Naruto, who was chewing on the bandages covering his mouth. Kid, lend me your kunai. Slowly, Naruto threw one of his kunai to Zabuza while hanging his head. With a huge, bloodthirsty grin on his face, Zabuza caught the blade between his sharp, like teeth. He looked straight into Getu's eyes, which widened and then went rigid. Getu commanded, Kill him. Kill him now, and his army of thugs charged forward, swung their weapons everywhere. With a sneer, Zabuza charged forward, tearing through their ranks with blood and gore, slashing throats, crushing skulls beneath his feet, and stabbing all the way to Getu. With swords and spears sticking out of his back and his wounds taking their toll, Zabuza stumbled a little in front of Getu. Despite this, he disregarded death and sent Getu a sickening, twisted smile before charging forward again and impaling the little man's throat with the kunai in his mouth. Zabuza let out a sadistic snarl before tearing the kunai from Getu's throat and spinning and slashing it open. I can't wait for us to get to hell Getu. Chan, I'll get to play with you for all eternity, then we will see how much of a demon I really am, he said. Zabuza kicked Zabuza into the sea below and off the bridge. Breathing heavily, he turned to face the thugs, causing them to flinch before he let go of the kunai and stumbled forward a few paces before he fell to the ground entirely. Kakashi, Tazuna, and Naruto all bowed their heads in deference to the man. After a round of applause and agreements, one of the bandits said, Hey, that bastard just killed our meal ticket. Now we're going to have to raid the village, we ain't going home empty-handed. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Both Naruto and Kakashi exclaimed as they moved forward, spawning roughly 100 clones. Sick him, Naruto commanded, and as the real Naruto and Kakashi landed next to Zabuza, all of the clones on the bridge rushed the bandits, who immediately began to run back onto the boats they had come on. Is Haku safe? Zabuza was silent. Naruto made a feeble joke, yeah, I hope she didn't kill Kiba and, to a lesser extent, Sasuke. Zabuza said feebly, don't worry about that, she wouldn't kill them, she has a big heart, before he could turn to face Naruto. Zabuza begged, promise me you'll take care of her, and Heen. Naruto nodded to the man as he smiled and slipped away slowly. On my blades, I swear it, I will look after her, and Heen. As he sat in his office, the Hokage gazed out over Junin and Anbu, two of his village's top shinobi who were actively involved in the village's defense and each a legend in their own right. As the final two Junin entered the room to start the meeting, Sarutobi grinned. As several Junin whispered and asked each other questions, Sarutobi took a moment to process the news. I'm glad you could join us, Asuma, Kurenai. Now, I have a diplomatic problem that needs to be handled carefully over the next few days. I'm not sure when it will happen, but it will, and your actions will be preventing a Konoha civil war. After waiting a short while, Sarutobi exhaled with relief when no one left and everyone appeared to step forward. If you want no part of this mission, leave this room, and your Hite.8 on my desk as you'd not be needing them, he said. Good. Then the following conversation is an S-ranked secret and is not to be repeated. Earlier this week the Hyuga clan cast a vote to brand their heiress with the caged bird seal. The vote was a tie and per their clan laws, it becomes a clan-wide vote. Heishi believes that the main branch councilors against Hinata will exploit the caged bird seal to force their vote to pass, Sarutobi clarified. As Anko slammed her hands down on Sarutobi's desk and walked through the throng of Junin, she yelled, They can't do this. That's my student, tell me you're not letting this happen. I cannot stop them from doing what the law says they're within their rights to do, to brand the Hyuga heiress, but she is no longer the heiress, nor is she a Hyuga. Heishi himself has emancipated Hinata from the clan, in hopes to save her from the seal. Sarutobi stopped. Hinata is a ward of the Hokage, and the Hyuga elders are going to try to brand Hinata the moment she sets foot into the village. It's going to be a case of getting to her before they do, as I can only present the emancipation papers to them once Hinata herself has seen them. Kurenai asked anxiously, and if they manage to seal her beforehand or after we have presented the legal documents? After a brief pause, Sarutobi got up from his desk and turned away from his shinobi to gaze out the window. I have a detailed list of every Hyuga. Out of the 116 members, at least 35 of them are to be executed, immediately and with extreme prejudice. Heishi himself has arranged for all of these members to be in one place at the same time. Most of you will be tasked with their assassination, whilst the rest will be on guard duty. Sarutobi breathed a sigh of relief as Sarutobi handed Anko a thin, small scroll and said, "Anko, I need your summons to deliver this scroll to Naruto. He'll be the one to tell Hinata before she enters the village." Anko picked up the scroll, examined it, and then put it in his pocket. Hokage. Sama, I know for certain that the Hyuga are employing the use of the seal to force the branch family's votes. Guy was serious. Neji has been showing signs of mental fatigue and has been suffering headaches for the past week. It isn't us that need to worry about the Hyuga should be wary of Hinata's team. Mate, Naruto is extremely protective of her, even going as far as to take a direct hit for her if he finds her harmed in any way. And we could end up dealing with another clan massacre, and I for one wouldn't get in his way, Anko said as she hurried out of the office, her anger ebbing from her. Sarutobi nodded. One of the Junin in the back of the room said, "Wow, I never thought that crazy bitch cared for anyone." Kurenai glared at the man who had just spoken. "That crazy bitch happens to be my best friend, and for your information, she cares a lot for people, more so than you think. She has done a fine job by her 3 genin and I'll be damned if I let you badmouth her for what you think you know about her. Deception is a shinobi's greatest tool, and in future if you have any comments, keep your tongue behind your teeth." She snapped venomously. The Junin mocked Kurenai, saying, "That team is a team of fuck-ups and you know it, she even has that thing on her team." "Juin, would you like to repeat that sentence?" A chilly, gloomy voice asked. Everyone's eyes were on the Hokage, who was wiping down his desk. The Junin was immediately surrounded by the Anbu in the room. They would do this for their Hokage, but more for the blonde who kept their jobs interesting and their rookie members in the top notch with his pranks, who would kill the man with a single command. The man bowed deeply and walked out of the room after Sarutobi said, "You call yourself Junin, you disgust me, get out of my sight." "Now, then let us discuss who will be where when this shit storm starts," Sarutobi said. The bridge, Wave Country. The fake Hunter Nin, who appeared to be aiming for Sasuke's eyes every time, slugged him again, and Kiba watched as he hit the ground, clutching at his eye. Kiba rose slowly and lunged toward Haku, but the girl retreated to her mirror. As Kiba exclaimed, "I'm not as stupid as I look. Akamaru, do it." When Haku heard a dog yap behind her, she turned to see a tornado of spinning claws aimed directly at her mirrors. She glanced back quickly to see the Inuzuka boy was also on her way, trapping her so she couldn't jump to the next mirror without getting struck in the face from both sides. Her mirror was struck on both sides by both attacks, shattering it and sending her flying back out of the dome until she skidded to a stop. She stumbled a little as she stood up, her mask breaking and slowly falling away from her face. She collapsed to her knees, exhausted from the last attack, her chakra gone, her strength gone, and her body burned with pain. She stumbled forward, clutching her blood-soaked waist with one hand. When she looked up, the boy who had attacked her was staggering toward her while holding a kunai. "I underestimated you, and you beat me. I am happy to not have to kill you," Haku said with a sad, genuine smile as she jerked herself to her feet and looked at Kiba. Kiba halted his progress in the direction of the girl, gazed at her, then let go of his kunai and fell to his knees. Kiba shook his head at the girl, saying, "It's dishonorable to kill a defeated and injured enemy." As she collapsed back into her hands with her head on the ground, Haku begged, "Please just kill me, I'm a broken tool to Zabuza. Sama, I have failed him." Kiba was appalled until Naruto and Kakashi touched down beside them. Naruto said softly as he approached the girl, who slowly sat up to gaze at the blonde, "It's over, Haku, I'm sorry, Zabuza's dead, he told me to tell you, our storm is over." She muttered to herself, I see, Zabuza. Sama is," before stumbling to her feet and almost falling if Naruto hadn't caught her and supported her. Naruto asked, "Kiba, where is Hinata?" Haku, clutching at Kiba's waist, interrupted her feebly as she opened her mouth to speak. She pointed past an unconscious Sasuke and into the mist beyond, saying, "She was fighting Hine, my auntie. They should be just a few meters through the mist that way. I incapacitated the girl during their fight, or my auntie's seal would have forced her to kill her. She believes the girl dead." After a brief moment of concern, Naruto began to move in that direction, giving Haku a blood tablet as he became aware of Sasuke's motionless, unconscious body. With a hopeful nod towards Sasuke, Naruto asked, "Is he dead?" Without remorse or inhibition, Haku declared, "If it weren't for the other boy's actions in defeating my technique, he would be." While Tazuna assisted with Kiba, Kakashi looked after Sasuke. To locate Hine and Hinata, Naruto sat Haku down close to Kiba and dashed into the dense, swirling mist. He saw the woman he assumed to be Hine cradling Hinata as he emerged from the mist and came to a complete stop. Seeing his Hinata so mangled and limp in the woman's arms, the two senbon needles sticking out from the side of her neck, he inhaled sharply. He moved in closer, having to tell himself over and over again that his girlfriend was still alive, but it felt and looked so real. He took a step closer, and the woman turned to face him angrily. She instinctively threw the blade of ice that was forming in her hand. The blade flew past Naruto, slicing open his cheek as he held his ground. Naruto said, "You must be Hine," as a matter of fact, glaring at the woman, trying to read her for any malevolent intent. He relaxed a little as he gazed at the woman's streaked cheeks and red, puffy eyes. The words, "You. Why? You're the boy," came out of her jaw. As he walked over and knelt down to Hinata, across from Hine, Naruto remarked, "Zabuza is dead. Haku told me about the seal." After carefully removing the girl from Hine's arms, he gently pressed his fingers to the holes in her neck in an attempt to halt any minor bleeding. As he brushed some of Hinata's hair away from her face, he continued to stare at her face. As he pulled Hinata into his arms bridal style and got to his feet, Naruto said softly, "We will look at your seal when Hinata-chan wakes up. I'm no master, but I know how to read the formula for any fuinjutsu. I might just be able to pull the seal apart." Hine looked up at him with wide eyes. With a glimmer of hope shining in her eyes, she begged, "She's not dead?" With a slight smile, Naruto assured the women, "No, Haku put her in a death-like state. She'll wake up soon, though she will be very weak for a few hours." When the woman started crying again and wiped her eyes with her sleeve, he scowled a little. Naruto glimpsed her eyes at that moment. Naruto posed the straightforward question, "You are a Hyuga, how? Why?" With hesitation, Hine answered, I'm Hinata's mother." Before he schooled his features, Naruto gave her a startled look. "I can tell. You both stutter when you're nervous and you both have the same unique lavender-tinted eyes that I've not seen in any other Hyuga," Naruto said, giving her a calculating look. Naruto grinned a little. Naruto turned to begin walking back to the rest of the group with Hinata, nodding for her to follow him. Hine was perplexed because she had spent the last 2 days watching this boy with her daughter and knew they were close, intimate even, but he didn't seem to give a damn about her condition. After scowling, Hine twirled Naruto around. "I watched you too. I know what you mean to her, yet you care nothing for her current injuries," Hine said. "Says the mother who knows nothing about her daughter. Hinata told me you died when she was 4. She's perfectly fine. Our sensei has given her worse injuries during spars. Besides, Hinata is my girlfriend. I'd gladly slaughter entire nations to keep her safe and willingly die to see her happy in life. So don't you dare stand there and judge me. I was ready to tear you apart, limb from limb, when I saw the state she was in." Naruto screamed at the elderly lady as his tears flow and began to leave away from her. The boy was right, and Hine hung her head in embarrassment. She hardly knew her own daughter, so she had no right to question him. A quiet, "Sorry, why? You're right," came from Hine. "Look, you and Hinata are going to need time to talk and reconnect, but I swear to you right now, if you are anything like her other family members, if you hurt her in any way, you'll die. Her life was nearly as bad as mine growing up," Naruto said, pausing as he looked at Hine to gauge any feelings. Naruto smirked slightly and chuckled quietly before turning to face Hine with a sorrowful smile. "I fear for anyone who truly upsets me. It has only ever happened once. No one deserves what I did to him, but I'll gladly shoulder the guilt and self-loathing and do it over and over if it keeps her safe. It's only recently that Hinata has started to smile and laugh. Before, her life was empty of any happiness, no friends, and they only leave her alone now because of who I am, and what I am capable of doing to the clan. They know that to upset her is to upset me." Hine followed him and asked, "What is your name, boy?" According to Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, village pariah. Even though Heen had been away from Konoha for almost 10 years, she couldn't help but smile because she knew who this boy was. The fact that the Hyuga heiress Hinata had developed feelings for Kushina's boy amused her. When they arrived at the rest of the group, she walked up beside him and remarked, "You remind me a lot of the fourth Hokage." Lady Heen?" Kakashi asked in astonishment as he glanced over and almost passed out. With a look of shock on her face, Heen said, "Kakashi? Is that you?" Kakashi pointed to the woman and exclaimed, "You're supposed to be dead." "Clearly not." A smiling Heen exclaimed. From her place on the floor, Haku muttered, "I'm so confused, auntie." After glancing at Haku, Heen hurried to examine her wound, saying, "Haku, you're bleeding." Haku repeated, "I'm fine, tell me what's going on." After Heen gave him a look, Kakashi remarked, "Lady Heen is the matriarch of Konoha's Hyuga clan, but she, supposedly died after giving birth to Hinata's younger sister, Hanabi," concluded Kakashi. "I was drugged, kidnapped and branded with a bastardized caged bird seal before being sold to the highest bidder, that bidder being Zabuza." Heen summarized her tale. Kiba questioned, "Why didn't you get a message to Konoha?" "This seal of mine, I'm not sure how it works. I know how to read but my body is simply incapable of writing. I've tried hundreds of times with the same results each time, just a headache," Heen said. "A neurological disruption seal, it's basic. If the formula for the seal is right, it can be used to stop the human body from doing multiple things. For example, you can remove one of or all of the 5 senses, or in your case, specific actions," Naruto said slowly. "That's a very complex seal to apply, and from what I heard Haku say, your seal has a combat inhibitor seal, making you attack whatever you're commanded to, yet another complex seal. I can't remove those, only Master Jiraiya could do that," Kakashi clarified. "I can remove the neuro disruptor, if it isn't integrated into the rest of the seal," Naruto responded by nodding. "I'm no master but I have an intermediate understanding of how most seals work. Guys, we should head back. We need to get Haku and Hinata to Sakura. She's the only other medic next to Hinata," Kakashi stated. As soon as their battered bodies could carry them, Kiba got up and Heen assisted Haku and Kakashi in slinging Sasuke's unconscious body over his shoulder before they all made their way to Tazuna's house. At that moment, they heard a group of people assembling at the end of the bridge. When they turned to look, they saw that every village in Nami no Kuni was there, standing and chatting with one another. A young boy was in the center of the group. Tazuna asked, "Inari, what's going on here?" With a determined smile, Inari exclaimed, "We came to fight Gatu," as the villagers applauded behind him. Before long, Inari was flanked by Sakura and Shino. Sakura grinned before focusing on the group's condition. Inari insisted we come to help. She bounded over to Naruto. Sakura exclaimed, "Hinata, what happened to her?" "Don't worry, she'll be fine. She's just unconscious. The battle is over. We won and Wave is rid of Gatu," said Naruto. Then Naruto turned to face a pale Haku. Sakura merely nodded and hurried over to check on Haku while Naruto approached Inari, knelt down, and gave the boy a stern look that caused him to shrink back a little, Hinata still in the blonde's arms. "Sakura, see what you can do about her wound. Her name is Haku." Unexpectedly grinned. "See, when you keep going, no matter how bad it gets, nothing can beat you, especially when you have something precious worth fighting for. Your father knew that, and now, so do you. Live up to his expectations of you, Inari, and you'll make him proud and you will become the man your father was," quietly said Naruto. Despite crying a little, Inari enthusiastically nodded in agreement with Naruto's remarks. Later on that evening, Tazuna's home, with the exception of Hinata, Naruto, and Sasuke, who after waking up refused to sit with the others, saying that he wouldn't sit and eat with his enemies, everyone was laughing and having a good time at the packed dinner table. Rather than attempting to persuade him as she had hoped, the others just left Sasuke alone and went out to have fun. Hinata was still in the tent outside, still not waking, and Naruto was observing her. She had woken up a couple of times, but she had immediately gone back to sleep. Naruto kept a close eye on her because he knew that when she woke up, she would be a flurry of emotions, especially when she finally spoke to Heen. Finding a mother who was supposed to be dead alive and a cousin you didn't know existed would shock most people, and he was already beginning to worry that she might lose it under the strain of the situation. Naruto was grinning warmly at Hinata when she slowly opened her eyes and looked in his direction. He laughed and leaned in to assist her as she struggled to sit up. "You're awake, good," he said. She winced as she raised her hand to her neck. Naruto handed her a glass of water and said, "Yeah, that might sting for a while." Naruto held the glass for her to drink from after almost dropping it. Haku said you'd be weak for a couple of hours, possibly days after being put into a near-death state, Naruto clarified. Haku? Asked Hinata. Oh, long story short, Zabuza and Gatu are dead in the fake hunter Nin. Haku and the Hyuga woman will be coming back to Konoha, said Naruto. The words, I need T.to speak to the Hyuga woman I fought, came out of Hinata's mouth hard. Naruto clarified, you're going to need strength, so get some first. Reluctantly, Hinata lay back down and gazed at Naruto while nodding. His voice was soothing as he asked, what's the matter? Quietly, she said, I'm sorry I lost my battle. Naruto kissed her forehead and said, it's not important, Hinata-chan. The woman you fought is just as strong as Sensei, if not stronger. You did amazing. Besides, you're alive, that's what's most important, Naruto said, sitting next to her and holding her hand. Nervously, she said, Naruto-kun, circa could I have a hug? After getting to his feet, Naruto slipped into Hinata's futon and embraced her. Hinata held him close to her. Better, he said softly. After such a close call today, which made her realize that life is brittle and can be taken from you, Hinata nodded and sighed contentedly. She needed some consolation after today's frightening experience. Inside the home of Tazuna. How's your wound, Haku? Sakura asked from the other side of the table. The girl looked up from her plate, but she didn't say much because she felt very uncomfortable. With a faint smile, she said, it hurts a little, but this cream you put on it is very soothing, thank you. It's Hinata's cream, she makes it herself, though she need to make a lot if she wants to keep up with Naruto and our sensei. Heen inquired, who is your sensei? Mitarashi Anko, was Sakura's response. Heen shivered a little as she said, oh that can't be good for my little girl, and Kakashi laughed. They get on really well, Hinata and Anko that is, though Naruto has been taught by Anko for much longer, since he was about 8 I think, I am not too sure. Sakura clarified, so she's a lot closer to him than anyone. Kakashi grinned and said, Anko loves all 3 of them, but lately in the Junin lounge she won't shut up about Hinata being the next Anko. Heen just shivered once more. She asked Kakashi, how is my husband, and Hanabi? Kakashi paused and said, quietly over the table, Haishi. Sama is a troubled man, he's very hard on Hinata, she is considered a failure in the eyes of the clan. Hanabi is strong for her age, and arrogant because of it, Kakashi said, and to the relief of the tsunami, his smut novel was out of sight for the first time in his life. With a disappointed nod, Heen turned to face the tent outside the window. She would soon have to talk to Hinata. She was unable to determine whether she was happy, sad, or angry. She was aware that the occasion would be highly emotional. Although it had only been a little over 30 seconds since they had sat there, it felt like an hour had passed, and the awkward silence was beginning to set in. Heen and Hinata were seated opposite each other, and as she gazed at Hinata, a tiny smile appeared on her face. In contrast, Hinata was intrigued by the woman's smile and, to be honest, a little uneasy about it. In order to give them some privacy and to prevent inadvertent listening by others, she had requested to speak to Hinata outside on the porch. Heen shook her head and took a deep breath before steadying herself. Well, I guess I'll start, she said. Hinata, this is probably going to sound fucked up to say the least, Heen began. Hinata merely arched an eyebrow at the woman's word choice and then let out a small sigh. Heen paused and grinned a little, but she felt uncomfortable now. The awkward silence was broken when Hinata asked, why are you out here? I was betrayed by one of the clan elders, because I have a dual bloodline, unlike most Hyuga. My grandmother was from a clan in Water Country with the Hyouden bloodline ability, but I did. For that I was already seen as a disgrace by the clan. The elders claimed my blood was tainted by filth. Only one person stood up for me, your father. Hinata snorted at this, but she remained silent to allow the woman to continue. He was my only friend within the clan and eventually, I married him and had you. Heen spoke slowly as she observed Hinata's expression shift from sour to blank shock, then rage. You dare claim to be my mother is dead. How dare you? Hinata glared at Heen as she stood there. Heen yelled, Hyuga Hinata, sit down right now, and startled the heiress back to her chair. Your name is Hinata Hyuga, your favorite flowers are lavenders and lilacs, your favorite food is cinnamon buns. You have a younger sister called Hanabi, Heen said. Hinata yelled, that information can easily be obtained. I don't believe you, and started to walk away, but Heen's voice interrupted her. You keep a diary hidden in the floorboards of your room, and you keep the necklace I gave you for your 3rd birthday around your neck at all times. In it there is an image of the two of us in our flower garden. You're wearing a white kimono and I'm wearing a blue one. The necklace did, in fact, always hang around Hinata's neck, and her hand automatically rubbed the flak jacket. Slowly, she turned to face the woman, who gave her a direct look in return. Hinata's heart broke as she stared at the woman in front of her, tears threatening to spill out of her eyes. As her own tears streamed down her cheeks, Hine said softly and with a faint smile, "You don't need to hide your tears from me, you never have." "Why? You used to say that whenever I was scolded for not acting like a Hyuga, by the clan," Hinata softly replied. As she looked at Hine, she realized that her mother had been alive the entire time and that someone had betrayed her and her entire family. Hinata experienced a flurry of emotions all at once, including relief, happiness, and love, as well as feelings of betrayal, hurt, and pain. When she finally allowed the tears to fall freely down her cheeks, she turned to face Hine. As she glanced down and then back up at Hine, she muttered to herself, "I don't know what to feel." Hinata stepped back as Hine stood. Hinata uttered the words, I need to be alone, prior to fleeing Hine. As Hine stood there, he watched with concern as Hinata embraced herself tightly. There was silence for a moment, and then she felt a body touch down beside her. Naruto gave her a blank look before flashing a small smile when she turned slightly. "Don't worry, she'll be back once she's sorted her thoughts out. This is a big shock for her, to find you alive, and what's more, her own family betrayed her," whispered Naruto. Hine gave the boy a smile before she took a seat again on the house's porch, and Naruto joined her. The quiet voice of Naruto said, "She doesn't blame you." "I hope not, I've waited for this day for nearly a decade. In truth, I envy her so much, her and Sakura, they both have families, I don't even know my parents' names, or if they loved me or even if they wanted me," Naruto murmured. Before she spoke, Hine gave the boy a pitying look. "I knew your parents, I knew them well, and they most certainly did want you and love you, and don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise," Hine said quietly. Naruto questioned, almost frantically, "Who were they?" "I can't tell you that, you'll find out eventually, you just need to be patient, and by the way, if you know what's good for you, you won't allow my husband to know you're dating his eldest daughter without his permission." I remember him going into distinct, specific and vivid details of what would happen to anyone who would try to defile his little girl without him knowing, Hine said while wiping the tears out of her eyes. Naruto ignored the warning, though he paled a little. A tiny puff of smoke in front of them soon caught their attention. When it looked like a snake with an almost bursting belly, Naruto sighed. The serpent's tongue flickered toward the blonde as it slithered slowly in Naruto's direction. Naruto grabbed a kunai from his utility pouch and picked up the snake in one hand while muttering to himself, "I hate it when she does this." Hine turned away from the scene after watching in curiosity as Naruto immediately gutted the snake there and took out a scroll that was slightly wet with blood. After discarding the snake, Naruto turned to the scroll and examined the Hokage's wax seal. Hine glared at Naruto and said, "That was disgusting. Did you have to do that in front of me? I hate snakes." Naruto grabbed Hine's attention by tearing off the seal and opening the scroll, saying, "It's from the Hokage, this can't be good news." As Naruto read the scroll's contents, his expression grew increasingly solemn. He rolled the scroll back up after finishing his reading. "What is it?" Hine inquired. "The main house Hyuga elders are going to try and give Hinata the seal when we get back. Heishi has emancipated Hinata from the clan in an attempt to save her from the seal. Unfortunately, the document has to be shown to Hinata before it is finalized. She's still a Hyuga and can still be sealed before the document is presented. Clan laws and all that shiz," Naruto said with a serious and enraged voice. In a panic, Hine exclaimed, "What are we going to do about it? I'm powerless to help. The Hyuga counselor who sealed me would kill me on sight." Hine herself wanted an answer to the question Naruto posed. "Don't worry, I won't allow that. When we reach Konoha, I'll be escorting you both to a safe house until the situation is sorted out properly. And if by some chance that seal ends up on Chan's forehead?" In actuality, Naruto declared, "Then I will bring the Hyuga main house to the brink of extinction, and no one will stop me, not Anbu, not even the Hokage." "You'd do it? You'd really kill them all?" Hine asked, her eyes wide as she gazed at the boy, realizing how far he would go to keep her daughter safe. Naruto gave Hine a small smile and said, "To keep Chan safe, I'd kill myself happily for that. We've had this conversation before, remember?" Sakura. Kakashi hopped back and then leapt at her again, his fist cocked back, but Sakura spun on her heel and tried to sweep his legs from under him. He swung his fist full force at Sakura, but the pink head deflected the blow away from herself before she could sweep her elbow into his face. She then tried to follow up, spinning around and aiming her other fist directly at Kakashi's face, but again missed. She then raised her knee as she leapt, but Kakashi grabbed her ankle and threw her in the direction of a tree. Sakura smirked as he leapt off, high into the air, and then she flipped, bringing her leg down on Kakashi with enough force to smash his skull. Kakashi jumped back as Sakura struck the ground, cracking the hard dirt beneath her leg. Sakura landed on the tree foot first, using chakra for grip. "Well, I am very impressed. Anko's taught you very well. You even made me put my book away. As promised in our wager, both Kiba and Shino are allowed to train with your team when they aren't on missions or training with the rest of Team 7, Kakashi said, standing up straight and clapping. He then pulled out his porn again, grinning. Kakashi uttered the words, "Now. I'm going to go and get lost on the road of life, bye," before vanishing in fog of smoke. Sakura grinned and turned to face Kiba and Shino, who were both looking a little scared and excited at the same time, and Shino was still Shino. "Wow!" Kiba exclaimed foolishly. "You thought that was good? You should see Hinata fight, she's downright evil and she doesn't play nice either." Sakura grinned as she spoke. "Well, honestly, I'm excited I'll learn to move like that and I never thought of using my elbows in a fight before," Kiba said, shivering a little but laughing nonetheless. Sakura grinned as Kiba appeared a little alarmed. "Kami help you if you fight Anko. Sensei, she head. Butts, elbows, knees, strangulates, she's horrible to fight one-on-one. I will benefit greatly from this training. As an Aburame, we tend to forsake close combat for range, but after seeing how Hinata used my Kikai bugs to blind her opponent, I can now see that using bugs in close combat can be beneficial as well. Perhaps I shall create the first Aburame taijutsu style," said the bug user, adjusting his sunglasses. Sasuke. In Tezuna's home, Sasuke sat in the boys' room, glaring at the floor while leaning his back against the wall. It had been some time since he had last thought. "I'm an elite Uchiha who possesses the most potent dojutsu in the world. These cockroaches can't even begin to comprehend the weight of being the last Uchiha. I'm practically a god among them. Their blasphemies will cost them everything. Just wait and see. When we return to Konoha, I'll have the Uzumaki bastard whipped for his offenses against me until he cries for forgiveness at my feet. How could he possibly spill my blood? It's my blood, Uchiha blood, divine blood, and it's more valuable than the whole Konoha village. They cannot take away my divine birthright, which makes me a divine being." As his feelings grew more intense by the moment, Sasuke reflected, "I am still the strongest, I have the most hatred." Sasuke grinned slightly as he assured himself of his superiority, saying, "Yet, he beat me with such ease, I must unlock the Sharingan soon. Then and only then will I be strong enough to kill Itachi, and then I'll kill all who oppose the Uchiha's rebirth into this world as the dominant species. No other bloodline or technique can match the might of the Sharingan. I'll test myself on Uzumaki. If I kill him, I'll be one step closer to killing Itachi." Haku. Are Auntie Hine and cousin Hinata going to be alright? As they strolled through the forest, searching for Hinata, who had been gone for just over 2 hours, Haku turned to face Naruto and asked. "Hinata loves her mother more than anything, she's just trying to deal with this whole situation. I should imagine it's not easy," replied Naruto. "It's not easy. When Hine came to us, I was shocked to see someone with the same bloodline as myself. I was angry, confused, happy and relieved all at the same time," Haku murmured. "Haku, what does it mean that our storm is over?" "I've been wondering about that for a while," Naruto inquired. "I was never Zabuza Sama's slave. I was always free to leave if I so desired, but how can you turn your back on the one person who is kind to you? I stayed and I made his goals my goals. His dreams became mine. Our storm is over," Haku explained, pausing at the end to glance at Naruto as he gazed at her. "Especially when no one else will have anything to do with you," he said. "His final order, for me to live happily and have a good life, to go where I want, to do what I want with my life. He knew he would lose his life before his dreams became a reality and I half expected to join him in death," Haku stated, removing the tears from her eyes. "I kind of understand you a bit more now. My sensei was the only person to acknowledge my existence except for the Hokage and a ramen stand owner with his daughter." Naruto grinned slightly. "Now I have the Hokage, the ramen stand owners, Anko, Sensei, Hinata, Chan, Sakura, Hayate, Sensei, Shino, Kiba, Kakashi Sensei, I think, and you." "Me?" Haku inquired inquisitively. "Yes, you saved Hinata from being killed by Hine's seal. In a fairly screwed up way, but you still saved her," So I know you're a kind person and I know you must feel more alone than ever right now, but you still have a family and you're Hinata. Chan's cousin, her best cousin. You showed more kindness toward her with your needles than her other cousin, Neji, ever has. That's really sad, to hear that a family is so brutal toward one another, Haku said. As he scratched the back of his head, Naruto said, I decided I wanted to become Hokage, so I can end all the needless hatred in my village, and the Hyuga clan would just be the beginning. I both envy and feel sorry for them. Hokage? Is the Mizukage similar to that? Haku asked doubtfully. Naruto acknowledged, I suppose so, in a way. Both are leaders of their villages. The Mizukage attempted to eradicate all of us with bloodlines, so why would you want to be like him? Haku posed an accusing question. The Hokage position would never be given to someone like that, trust me Haku. The Leaf Village loves bloodlines. The spoiled brat Uchiha is living proof of that. Naruto grinned. Haku raised her head. My apologies Naruto-san, I assumed all cages were the same. I've not been taught or told differently. When Naruto saw Hinata sitting on a log a short distance away, he grinned and said, It's okay, you weren't born into a ninja lifestyle like most shinobi are. Haku nodded once in response to Naruto's quiet, wait here, statement, and Naruto approached Hinata cautiously. Hinata leaned into Naruto, who sat down beside her slowly, put an arm around her waist, and kissed the top of her head while remaining silent and rubbing her back for a few seconds before speaking softly to her. You alright? Yeah, I'm Jay. Just a little bit. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel. Are you happy or angry? Quietly, she inquired. I think, you should be happy, and grateful to have a second chance with your mother. A lot of us don't get that chance, Naruto said quietly. Hinata stared and said, You're right, but Naruto interrupted. Naruto grinned, kissed Hinata's cheek, and got to his feet. No buts Hinata. Chan, just accept what's happened and move on with it. I felt the same when I found out I was Jinchuriki, it gets easier. Naruto grinned and said, Come on, you still haven't met your cousin properly. A cousin? Hinata inquired inquisitively. Naruto called the brunette, Haku, and invited him to come over. With a feeble smile, Haku approached Hinata and Naruto slowly. Naruto gestured for her to approach again until the three of them were standing close to each other, and the two girls examined one another. Haku said, My name is Momochi Haku. First, Hyuga Hinata. After a few awkward moments, Haku's attention was drawn to something and she knelt down to look at a flower. Hinata watched the girl with interest until she, too, saw the flower and knelt down to look at it. Naruto noticed the flower when he looked down and thought, oh no, what's going on? Naruto.kun. The flower has legendary healing powers and is incredibly rare. Hinata spoke softly, as though speaking too loudly would cause the flower to wither. This little plant is worth around 50 million ryo to the right buyer, even more if they are desperate, Haku said quietly before going on to say. But as Hinata.san just said, its healing properties are unique and very much desired. Wars have been fought for this plant. Really, if they're that uncommon, then why is this clearing filled with about 7 people? As he and the two girls looked around, wide-eyed, Naruto asked. With a sigh, Naruto sealed Kage Bunshin no Jutsu with a single hand before turning to face the clone. You know what to do. With a nod, the clone ran back to Tezuna's house. What is Naruto? Kun's clone? Hinata asked, turning back to the flower and carefully examining the leaves. I left my sealing supplies back at the tent. With such a rare opportunity to gather so many of these flowers, I wouldn't want them to wilt a few days after being picked, so we're going to get them potted and sealed. The clone will bring back the necessary supplies for us. In the meantime, Hinata, you should scan the area for any more. Hinata searched the area with her Byakugan and said, Naruto.kun, if we can plant all of them, and get them all home undamaged, then we can farm and harvest them. There's enough of them here to start a small plantation. She did not stutter once. Haku remarked, Auntie will be as shocked as us to see these Hinata.san. Haku, just call me Hinata, and you're right. I learned how to make healing salves from my mother's old diaries. Haku grinned and said, she taught me too. At least the tension between them is almost gone, Naruto thought as he watched the two, grinning a little. Afterwards, as they made their way back to the house, Naruto, Hinata, and Haku were talking about different ways to grow and cultivate flowers so that they would produce more consistently. Naruto listened with a modicum of interest, but if he was being completely honest, he had no interest in flowers. When Naruto looked straight ahead and saw that Sasuke was sitting on the porch of the house, he became more interested. He saw that Sasuke was polishing a large blade, but it wasn't his. Naruto sighed, wondering when the Uchiha would learn not to take things that weren't his. He was too late to stop Haku from running forward and pinning Sasuke to the house's wall by his throat, Kabikari Hucho, leaving him forgotten on the floor, but Naruto felt a sudden pressure from next to him. He watched as Haku continued to apply pressure to Sasuke's throat, the Uchiha grabbing and scratching at her hand for release. You. Touching Zabuza. Sama's sword is a bold move. She dropped him just as he was about to faint, and Haku glared down at him before turning and carefully picking up the sword. She then looked at Naruto and Hinata, who were both staring at her with mild shock. Haku growled, her voice laced with killing intent. If anybody is to wield it, let it be the one who defeated him. After all, it is tradition for the 7 swordsmen's weapons to be handed down to the one who can beat them in a fair blade fight like you did, Haku said softly as he approached Naruto and held the sword out to him. Haku, I can't accept this. Please. Before she pushed the blade into Naruto's hands, Haku said, as long as you have this, I'll do everything in my power to help you realize your dreams. You've given me a family, and if Konoha is what you claim it is, then you've given me a home. I owe you. Before turning to face Haku, Naruto glanced at the blade. He then nodded slowly and said, thank you, Haku, accepting the blade. The hilt unscrews. In it you will find a scroll with all of the information known about the blade and 3 various fighting styles you can learn for it. Haku laughed. I have nothing to holster it in, so I'll have to seal it for the time being. I'll admit that I was expecting it to feel much heavier, but instead it feels like it's practically pulsing my chakra. Naruto glanced from the sword to Haku and asked inquisitively. Good. I had hoped it would accept you as its next master. A few of the 7 swordsmen's weapons have special abilities. For example, Samahada's hilt can stretch. It also feeds on chakra and rather than cut, it shaves. Kabikari Hucho repairs itself with the blood of its victims and it continuously pulsates chakra, making the wielder immune to all genjutsu. Haku clarified with a slight grin. As she appeared alongside Kiba, Shino, and Kakashi, Sakura remarked, Samahada, I've heard the name before. As he spoke, Kakashi's gaze remained fixed on his priceless porn. The sword wielded by the monster of the mist, Hoshigaki Kisame. I've never encountered the man myself, but I do know that he has a near Biju level chakra reserve and a water elemental affinity not seen since the Nidaime Hokage. Recalling the bingo book entry, Sakura nodded, that's the one, big blue guy with nasty teeth and bad attitude. The words, I met him once, were spoken softly by Haku. And, after a few moments of silence, Sakura asked expectantly. The words, gobshite, complete and utter gobshite, were spoken by Haku, who gave a slight shake of her head. She was usually so courteous and well-mannered that everyone seemed to stare at her strangely. Naruto snorted in amusement and then laughed a little, followed by Sakura, Kiba, and finally Hinata. Kakashi just shook his head and smiled, and Shino was just Shino. The bridge. It was time for the Konoha party to depart for home, and the 2 Konoha ninjas stood in front of a huge group of Wave Country villagers. Tazuna stepped forward and grinned brightly at the ninja in front of him, spreading his arms wide. Without you, Konoha ninja, who came to help us despite the possibility of death, none of this would have been possible. You gave it your all, and as a result, we defeated Gato. You have given Wave life, and for that, we are incredibly grateful. Tazuna bowed as he concluded. The crowd bowed to the Wave Country's shinobi saviors in unison. The Hokage once told me that a little kindness goes a long way. You don't need to thank us. Would we have been any better than Gato if we had not helped? Naruto said, moving forward and placing a hand on Tazuna's shoulder. Smiling, Naruto asked. I hope you become Hokage one day, kid. The world needs more people like you and your team. Tazuna chuckled while giving Naruto a shoulder slap. Hey. Thank you. Tazuna-san. In any case, we'd better get off. Naruto chuckled as Inari tugged at his trousers. Are you required to depart? Naruto grinned and tousled the boy's hair, saying, unfortunately, we do Inari, but remember what I told you, sitting around, crying, and doing nothing doesn't solve the problem. As they observed Naruto and the others interacting with everyone, Hien and Kakashi stood side by side. Unconditionally kind and helpful, just like his father, Hien said, nodding in agreement. Kakashi nodded while speaking softly. He has his mother's hot-headed temper and skill with blades though. Sensei would be proud of how he turned out, considering the alternative. Since they weren't in a rush to return, the group said their final goodbyes and started across the bridge toward Konoha, a 2-day journey. After a little while, from where she and her team walked behind the others with Haku, Hinata watched her mother talking to Kakashi. Hinata caught up to Hien and walked beside her. Hime looked at Hinata with mild surprise, noticing that she appeared nervous and that she thought she was going to speak several times. Hime smiled, knowing that Hinata was having trouble trying to talk to her at the moment, and she simply put her arm around her shoulder and pulled her a little closer. Hinata gave a single nod, and Hime grinned. In your own time, Hinata. Maybe you can tell me about your blonde boyfriend. When Hinata realized her mother had called Naruto her boyfriend, the blood suddenly rushed back to her head, and Hime laughed at her expression, not noticing her daughter fall to the ground in blissful unconsciousness. Hinata's face immediately drained of blood as she dared not look at her mother for fear of her being upset. Sarutobi Hiruzen, who had begun this task more than 2 hours ago, sat in his office going over his own plans for the Hyuga incident that was undoubtedly going to start in the coming days. With a sour expression on his face, Hiruzen said, I hate waiting around for this to happen. It would be so much simpler to take down the threat with a pre-emptive strike on the Hyuga Council. However, clan laws give them rights to do that which they plan to do. To breach those rights would cause the other clans to become hostile because they would see it as the Hokage treading where he should not. The last thing I need is a loss of trust from the other clans. He then moved some papers out of the way. Additionally, the Chunin exams are scheduled for next month. With the exception of the Hyuga Council, of course, Sarutobi hurried out of his chair and demanded that the Anbu convene all parties involved in the Hyuga incident. The old Hokage laughed almost uncontrollably at his brilliant new idea. Sarutobi Hiruzen, you cunning old bastard, times like this when I feel I earned the title, Kami no Shinobi, they said. For his plan to succeed, he would first need 2 uncooperative volunteers, but he would have to choose one. Team Enko and Team 7. Haku, who was walking with Naruto and Sakura, said, Kakashi-san, there's something I've been meaning to ask. Why would you let Naruto fight Zabuza? Sama? The best way to explain that would be that Zabuza and Naruto both share a skill with a blade that I myself do not possess, same as I don't have the chakra control to use medical ninjutsu like Sakura or Hinata may have. Zabuza wanted to fight Naruto to test his skills, and Naruto has never before been in a battle with a swordsman of Zabuza's caliber and wished to test his own abilities. Kakashi began, attracting the attention of the entire group. When certain types of fighters come across one another, they react in certain ways to the enemy. But when 2 fighters of the same type cross paths, it becomes a whole different type of battle. It's what seasoned fighters like myself call a berserker battle due to the fact it always ends in one or both sides dead. That includes anybody who interferes with the fight, whether it be friend or foe. Bottom line is, I couldn't stop Naruto fighting Zabuza even if I had wanted to, and he would have been just as likely to attack me as he was Zabuza should I have intervened in their battle. Kakashi concluded. Before he became irritated and spoke, nearly everyone in the group was staring at Naruto strangely. He yelled, it's a sword thing, and then strode to the front of the group. There was silence for a moment before Naruto left the group. As they were walking, Kakashi fell in beside Naruto. Before speaking in a low voice, Kakashi glanced at the other members of the group. In a rare moment of worry, Kakashi asked, are you okay? You seem tense. Hyuga clan's planning to brand Hinata with the caged bird seal. Her father has legally filed papers to emancipate her from the clan to try and stop this. But those papers are only valid after Hinata has read them, whispered Naruto. With one eyebrow furrowed in concentration, Kakashi nodded and asked, were you given orders? Only once. I'm to create 2 clones to disguise as myself and Hinata to enter the village normally where she will be handed off to a group of Junin to guard her whilst the real me takes her to my place in the Forest of Death. The Hokage doesn't know that Lady Hine is alive, so I'll take her to my place too and contact him from there. I'm scared, Kakashi, Naruto said with a shiver down his back. Kakashi asked, does Hinata know? And Naruto shook his head. I know I need to tell her, but how do I do it? I don't even know if I can keep them both safe. I don't know if I'm strong enough to. Shut up, Kakashi snapped. Naruto's head was slightly bent. You're incredibly strong for your age, Naruto. Don't doubt yourself. Kakashi put a hand on the blonde's shoulder before continuing, saying, 2 days ago you faced an A-ranked missing ninja and you defeated him. Naruto, you can do this. This is what your life's training has been for. If you honestly believe you can't protect both Lady Hine and Hinata through this ordeal, you will never be worthy of the Hokage title, Kakashi said with seriousness. Naruto tensed up as Kakashi's words resonated with him and brought back memories of the 3rd Hokage. Rewind as they stood atop the 4th's head, looking out over the village as the dark night started to engulf the day. Sarutobi said, Naruto, do you know what it means to be Hokage? As the strongest of the village's ninja, Naruto turned to face the elderly man and said, To govern and run the village as the Hokage is responsible for seeing the village through the good and bad times. He is our leader. Sarutobi grinned and chuckled to himself. A very good answer, Naruto-kun, but not quite. Sarutobi drew a long drag from his pipe while keeping a watchful eye on the village. With a faint smile, Sarutobi remarked, to be Hokage is to be willing to give absolutely everything for the village, mind, body, even your very soul. That is what made the Yondaime so revered in the village. He gave his soul to the Shinigami to seal the 9 tails into you. He gave his very soul for this village. Naruto, can you say you do the same? Rhetorically asked the Hokage. Naruto looked out over the village, which detested him, but he was unable to hate it back. He clutched at his chest as the heat spread throughout his body as he stared out and felt it ignite into a roaring inferno. Perhaps then they would see past the demon to the human he was. He grinned, enjoying the sound of that, and vowed to protect everyone until the end of his days. Flashback termination. I'll use everything I have to protect them both. I'll give my mind, body, and soul if I have to, Naruto said with a determined smile as he looked forward and felt the same heat flare up in his chest as before. At Naruto's declaration, Kakashi's eye widened a little because he recalled the exact words his sensei had said to him almost 15 years prior. Kakashi gave himself permission to smile. I remember the Yondaime saying the same thing to me. I respect the Yondaime for his courage and sacrifice. I want to be like him, but I still think he's a prick for using me the way he did, said Naruto. Ah, but if you truly knew him, like I did, if you honestly knew what he was like, you'd understand why he used you, Kakashi said quietly. Care to elaborate? Kakashi sighed languidly, not really, effort, to which Naruto snorted and gave a slight glare. On the inside, however, Kakashi was giggling uncontrollably at the circumstance. Despite the treatment he received in the village, which was becoming less common, he thought it was funny that Naruto had become like his father. Since none of them wanted to disturb him, they continued to walk in comfortable silence after Naruto leapt back and joined them. As he walked, Naruto appeared to be lost in thought, simply looking straight ahead. Konoha. From a tall tree just inside the village gates, Kurenai and her temporary partner watched the gate. As she glanced at her temporary teammate, she felt her stomach turn and her face was adorned with a look of distaste. Igari Kanba was tall and thin, much thinner than most shinobi. He wore a flak jacket and a standard Konoha Chunin uniform, and he kept his long, greasy brown hair in a high ponytail. He gained notoriety in particular for bragging about his ninjutsu skills, saying he was on par with or even superior to the renowned Hitaki Kakashi of Konoha, who had copied more than 1,000 jutsu. When this fact was brought up in conversation, Kanba would merely respond that Kakashi was incapable of effectively using the majority of the jutsu he had copied. It was also well known that he envisioned himself as the Godem Hokage in the future and that he had tried to gain some political support in the village, with some success. However, he would require the support of one or more Konoha clans in order to become a well-liked contender for the next Hokage. Kanba's prowess in ninjutsu was well known, as were his unusually large chakra pools for a Chunin. He wasn't a stupid man either, he simply lacked common sense. The majority of ninjas kept their skills a secret, but Kanba showed them off to everyone, even trying to amuse the public with his abilities in an attempt to become more well-liked. These characteristics caused him to be disliked by the other Chunin and Junin in the village. They referred to him as a political ass-licker because he would stop at nothing to win favor with the public or council members. As Kurenai spoke, he appeared to be continuously molding his chakra and burning the tree with his fingertips out of boredom. I still don't see why us elite Junin are doing this, all to stop the Kyuubi Jinchuriki from going mental, replied Kanba. Firstly, you're not a Junin. Yet, Kurenai looked at him with fury before continuing. Secondly, have you ever seen a Jinchuriki lucid? I saw it during the last war when I was just a genin. I saw a Kumo nin turn into the beast itself and lay waste to an entire village with one sweep of its tail. That thing will haunt me for the rest of my life. That man knew how to control the beast. Naruto doesn't, so can you imagine the magnitude of the shit we would be in if he were to suddenly lucid? Replied Kurenai. I'm sure I'd be able to keep him under control with my ninjutsu, Kanba said with a disinterested shrug. Snorted Kurenai. Then you are an idiot. I've watched that boy train, seen him walk through some of the most lethal of jutsu as if it were nothing. Our skills wouldn't touch him. Look, you're a woman, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but trust me when I say this. I could kill the boy in seconds, if the situation called for it, of course. Kanba grinned. Kurenai gave the man a scathing glare, but he was too busy talking to notice. He smiled perversely and said, what I can say is I would definitely destroy Anko, if you get my drift. Bile was racing up to Anko's throat, making her stomach turn again. She fought the urge to throw up and then beat the living daylights out of this man. As was widely known, Kanba was proficient in ninjutsu, but his genjutsu was subpar and his taijutsu was nearly non-existent. Although he preached about his strength, the man was never really strong. Instead, his specialty was long-range ambush tactics using destructive jutsu. Kurenai immediately returned to her duties of guarding the gate and ignoring the pitiful, disgusting person seated beside her. Kirigakure, a young blonde boy, addressed a group of Mist Anbu, saying, "Zabuza's dead. Well, it happened sooner than I had anticipated. I may be the Mizukage, but I still wanted to tear the man's throat out myself. Everything ends eventually, even the great Zabuza." The boy, who was dressed in the traditional cage robes with green-blue trim, was roughly 5 feet tall, give or take a few inches. He had a scar under his left eye and pinkish-red eyes. On his back, secured by a shoulder strap, he carried an odd, dark wooden glaive. Mizukage. Sama, the word in wave is that it was a genin from Konoha who beat Zabuza in battle, said a member of the Anbu. The Mizukage said, "A genin? Next you'll be telling he was wearing a neon orange jumpsuit." "Not quite, Mizukage. Sama, his name is Uzumaki Naruto, he bested Zabuza in single combat. That's what I was told in Wave Country." Anbu said the same thing. As he gazed out of his office window at the hidden mist village, which he could not see very far through the mist, the Mizukage said, I have the appearance of a 10-year-old boy, a side effect of myself being an abomination. Konoha is hosting the Chunin selection exams within a month time. He'll be going disguised as a genin candidate. I want you to go and find my sister and bring her here. Bring Isami too. One of the concerned Anbu members said, "Mizukage. Sama, no disrespect, but is there a need to put yourself in such a harmful situation?" The blonde glared and asked, "Are you my mother?" "No sir." The Mizukage said icily, "Nice response, but if you ever talk to me out of term again, I'll have your tongue removed. I am Mizukage because I am the strongest, that is all. I have no time for your worries or concerns, but everything ends eventually, Kami. Sama punishes all." The Konoha group. Naruto had grown increasingly reclusive over the previous few hours as the group strolled. Haku and Hine, two of his teammates, had begun to worry about it, but Hinata and Sakura reassured them that he would be alright unless left alone. If he felt like talking about it, he would. As Naruto focused further into his subconscious, a few more minutes went by. Mind. Scape. Through the prison bars, Naruto gazed up at the Kyuubi. This contest of stares had been going on for a few hours, during which neither Naruto nor the beast had moved or spoken. Naruto would frequently come here and simply stare at the beast, and it would stare back at him without blinking or moving. Its breathing was barely perceptible to him. Then, for the first time since he first entered his mind to see the beast, Naruto spoke. "So, you're the Kyuubi, Meatstick," the beast snarled, acknowledging with a small nod. Naruto looked up at the beast and let out a small sigh. With a sigh, the Kyuubi imitated his container and surrounded Naruto with a violent plume of steam that rose from its nose. Naruto said, "You're not as violent as I thought you would be. I am thousands of years old. Are you and your kind honestly so narrow-minded as to think that a being of my stature would simply destroy everything it comes across?" the huge fox asked. "I had wondered why a tailed beast would attack Konoha so suddenly and without provocation." The Kyuubi sat up like a dog and looked at the blonde, his enormous ears standing upright on his head. "HMPH, tailed beast. You humans are all the same, using us as tools of destruction. Your kind have bastardized our purpose in this world," he said. "Meaning?" Naruto inquired. The fox said, "You're a curious little runt, aren't you?" before continuing. "This is not the first time I have been sealed into a human. This would be my 20th time now. Whilst I must say the last two were more pleasant about how they did it, I've only ever been used to destroy and kill, and because of that I am tainted. You felt my hatred in my chakra," said the fox. "So how you've been treated has inadvertently turned you into this legendary mass of hatred and malice," replied Naruto. After glancing at the blonde for a while, the Kyuubi turned to examine Naruto. Its gaze swept across the boy, assessing him. "Yes," the fox replied. "We were never supposed to be used as weapons of war, only to bring peace. That was our purpose given to use by the old man. You see, you're kind like killing each other. We were created to keep the balance of power. Eventually you'll die and I'll simply be sealed into yet another pathetic meatstick who will use my power to destroy and hurt the innocent," said the Kyuubi. As if it were a natural occurrence, Naruto stated calmly, "I don't want you inside of me. Having you inside of me has destroyed my life. I have no parents, barely any friends, and my home village would rather see me dead than defend them. Then why defend them? Why defend what you could so easily destroy? Because there are people in that village that do like me, who acknowledge my existence. They don't care that you are sealed inside me. They see me for me. If I destroy the village, it'd destroy them too. I want to prove that I am not a monster. Honesty is a rare thing these days, as such it deserves a reward. I don't trust you, not in the slightest, but I will allow you to use my chakra to a certain degree from now on. You'll find it's much easier to control if you break my trust. Before vanishing from the mind scape, Naruto gave the fox a sincere smile and said, Kyuubi, you are inside me, you are a part of me. Whether we like it or not, I won't let you down. In the meantime, I'll see what I can do about this seal, but I have to go now. Thank you, and it was nice to finally speak to you. With an evil smile, the fox lay back down and crossed its arms to rest its head on it. He's a weird one, sense a lot of the old man in him, perhaps, it said. Actual world. After bringing himself back to reality, Naruto inhaled deeply of the warm late spring air. He felt stronger than normal, as though a burden had been lifted. He turned to face Hinata, Haku, and Hine. When he looked at Hine, she gave him a slight smile and nodded. Naruto said, Hinata, to attract the girl's attention. She moved to walk beside Naruto. Yes, Naruto-kun? Something happened back in the village, more specifically within your clan. The Hokage sent me a message yesterday with the details. The main branch council has passed a vote to brand you with the caged bird seal, Naruto said quietly. Hinata seemed to be growing more agitated and anxious by the moment. As he continued to speak, Naruto wrapped an arm around her shoulder and squeezed her. We're going to hide at my place until Hokage Sama has resolved this issue amicably. Look, I need you to follow me. If it comes to a fight, you, Haku, and your mother will keep running. I won't let either of you get hurt. What if they discover us? She started to panic and asked softly. You'll be safe, I swear. Then I'll protect you with my life, Enko. Sensei will meet us there with a couple of chunin. Count me in too, I won't let my friends suffer, Sakura interrupted. Don't worry Hinata, I'm coming too, so is Haku, replied Hine. Hinata said, oh, okay, but she continued to hang her head in defeat. Before they slipped away from Team 7, Naruto silently created 3 cage bunshin, one of which hanged itself to resemble Hinata and the other to resemble Sakura. The other 3 genin were unaware of this, and Kakashi turned his head slightly at the switch before leading his team and the clones toward Konoha's main gate. Gate of Konoha. When the Konoha group arrived back at the front gate, 7 Hyuga were already there. Kakashi led his team out right away. Kakashi shuffled his 3 genin along and said, let's go, this is not our business. The Naruto clone spoke first as the clones approached the Hyuga elders, staying behind. Uzumaki Naruto, acting chunin of this squad, how may I help you? A young man with long black hair and very pale skin stepped forward, revealing his main house Hyuga status to the world with a bare forehead. He was looking directly at the clones with his Byakugan in motion. The man's eyes were fixed on Hinata, as he said, I am here to escort our heiress back to the clan compound immediately. He sounded as though he was repulsed to have been addressed by a commoner. Unfortunately, Hinata is needed for debriefing on a C rank turned A rank with the Hokage as we encountered. Well, I am not supposed to talk about that kind of stuff. You know that I am sure? Naruto spoke with ease. The man joked impatiently, yes, but this is not a request, she must come. By this point, onlookers and even a few shinobi had paused to observe the action, wondering why the Hyuga were out with such vigor. The growing crowd began to hear whispers, the majority of which were about Naruto finally receiving his just desserts. As her current CO, you have no jurisdiction over my squad, step aside and let us pass or I'll have you brought up on charges of obstruction, the Naruto clone said with a frown. The man shot a glance at the other 6 Hyuga who began to encircle the group and replied, the Hyuga clan does not play by your rules. The clone of Naruto squinted at the Hyuga, saying, treason. Before all 7 of the Hyuga charged in toward the group, they said, acquire the heiress, any state will do. Choose carefully upon where you point your kunai, Hyuga, make no mistake, if you attack my team I will strike you down with a vengeance unlike any other, the Naruto clone yelled as he stepped forward with aggression. With his eyes widening slightly from rage, the Hyuga charged forward at breakneck speed with the intention of killing Naruto. Suddenly, a dust and dirt storm erupted on the ground in front of the running Hyuga. After the dust settled, an Anbu with the swan's mask on it was visible. Her long, blue Black hair fell down her back like a pitch. Black, midnight waterfall. With a tight hold on his throat, she held the Hyuga in front of herself on his knees while he gasped. She tightened her grip and then tore out his throat, causing his eyes to widen a little. By order of the Sandame Hokage, the Anbu said, turning to face the other 6 Hyuga as they were dragged to the ground while Junin began to disperse the crowds. She received nods of approval before the 6 Hyuga vanished in a cloud of smoke with their Anbu escorts. You 6 are under arrest for acts of treason. Take them to their cells, then link up with us at the Hyuga compound, she ordered. Thank you for the setup, you can dispel now, your team is at your place with the Hokage, the Anbu said, turning to face Naruto and his clones. The Naruto clone grinned slightly before the 3 clones puffed themselves to death. Thanks. I don't think I'd have survived a direct kill shot, they'd have seen right through the plan if I had popped. Arbitrary roof in Konoha. Before deactivating his Jujutsu, a pair of white eyes observed the entire ordeal at the gate from a distance. I know where she is, he said as he stood alongside his 2 teammates. Through a respirator, the leader choked. Finally, after 12 long years, at last we shall have our revenge.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.